Good morning. My name is Lance Martin. I'm the broker owner of Coldwell Banker Pioneer Real Estate in Moreno Valley in Santa Ana, Coldwell Banker Town and Country in Claremont, Covina, and Coldwell Banker Realty Center in the city of Redlands. We took a risk of starting this thing at 8:30, knowing that realtors don't go anywhere at 8:30. So I know the block is full with registration, but shame on them because several of us got here really early. I think Susan and the team got here at like 6 almost. I think to help us set up. So, which is really a testimony to the lineup. Just to give you a real brief history of what we're doing here. We've done these, even though it says it's our second annual market forecast, we've been kind of, if you work in my office, you know that I'm a big data guy and I'm constantly pulling charts and graphs and throwing them on the screen. So for not once a year, it seems like every month we're talking data, charts. So about a month ago, we said, hey, it's that time of the year to do our big event. And we hadn't scheduled anything. And I think it was actually Brian who said, and I think he was saying this because frankly I think most of my agents are tired of hearing me talk about this stuff. So he said, hey, it would be kind of cool if we could get Chris Thornburg to come speak. Is Chris in the room yet, by the way? I didn't think so, because he's hard to miss. I think he's 7 feet tall. But at any rate, I thought, well, I don't know if we're going to be able to get Chris, but that'd be cool. So we made a few phone calls, and the next thing you know, he was available and everything worked, and we got him. And then I thought, well, wow, that'd be kind of cool if we could, maybe get Bruce to come. Where's Bruce, guys? He was here earlier. He walking around somewhere. There he is. And Bruce, we have VIP seating up here. So at any rate, I thought, well, heck, if we could get Chris to come, it'd be kind of cool if we could get Bruce to come. So we kind of put this thing together literally kind of on a whim. And then frankly, the more we started thinking about it, we thought, heck, if you know, who knows Bruce and Chris? Raise your hand. Who's never seen them speak before? Okay, but you know who they are? Okay. I got to tell you, if you've never, Bruce is a little more available probably on the local circuit because he is local and he's more available and does a lot more stuff locally. But if you've never seen Bruce speak, you're in for a treat. I just can't tell you. Now again, you gotta like data. There's not a lot of tap dancing and dancing bears and stuff going to be going on. But if you like the data and you find value in data, I come to these things frankly to do a business plan. I mean, I follow Bruce because Bruce helps me with my business plan. And then quite honestly, the same thing with Chris. I saw Chris speak for the first time, I think in 2005. I was in an audience just like that, and I just fell over. I'm like, oh my God, this guy has got it. I've been following him around the country, paying hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to go to Texas or go to Florida. To be honest with you, not because I wanted to go to 5-star, not because I wanted to go to NRBA or Rio Mac, is because I wanted to see Chris speak. And quite honestly, how long ago was it, Bruce, that you and Chris spoke in Florida? About 4 years ago? Okay, well, 4 years ago, Bruce and Chris, which is the last time I've seen them together. I know they did your I Survived Real Estate thing a few years ago, but anyway, the last time I saw them together was about 4 years ago, and I literally flew to Florida to see that 2-hour segment. So anyway, I see value with these guys. At least a few of you in your room see value with these guys. And if you don't know anything about them, I'm pretty confident when you leave here today at 11 o'clock, you're going to be glad you came and spent a couple hours with us. So, with that in mind, we opened up to the group and said, hey, if you're interested in this, come on down. Started sending emails to everybody. So I want to thank everybody that's here. We've got past clients, current clients, property management owners, we've got investors. I think most of you are probably realtors in one form or another, either working with my office or people that I've done business with in the past. So I just want to thank everybody for coming. It's a great event. And then to top it off, if that wasn't enough, about a week ago, Paul Herrera with Ivor, where are you at, Paul? Paul said, hey, this looks like it's going to be a pretty cool event. I think maybe Congressman Gary Miller might be interested in coming down if he's in town. So I said, are you kidding me? So with the help from Paul and from Gary's staff, we were fortunate enough to get the congressman to come here for a few minutes. So basically, and by the way, this is about the best talking you're going to get out of me. So if you didn't come here to hear me speak, good, because you're not going to get much more out of me today. So at any rate, Congressman Gary Miller is a representative in the 31st District. Who lives in the Congressman's district? You only got about a half a dozen voters here, but he'll take it, all right? He'll take it. I will tell you, if you did not come here to hear a politician speak, don't leave the room. And I'm not saying this to patronize our guest here. In my opinion, Congressman Miller is truly probably the only congressman that I know of who really has a grasp on what's going on in our industry. I've seen many of them speak, and I've seen him actually speak on panels with other representatives, and I was like, wow, that person doesn't get it, and then Congressman Miller interjects something, I'm like, oh, okay, wow. This guy knows what he's talking about and is really valued. Not only is he valued, he's been supported to the tune of, raise your hand if you're a realtor in the crowd. Most of us, okay. Well, your contributions, political contributions to NARNC helped elect this gentleman on a national level. They felt he was that important to housing. So, with no further ado, I'm going to introduce Congressman Gary Miller. He's got a few comments, and he's going to kick us off. So.
Does that work? Yeah. Good morning. You know what's nice about recoveries, I've been in the real estate industry and building industry since I was about 21 years old. And when times get bad, rooms are pretty empty. Times get better, you start to see seats filling up. And to see this many realtors sobered up at 8:30 in the morning, really bad. So, I met with Jerry Giovanelli, and he's the director of your National Association. And are any of you going back to Washington this coming week? No trip? Well, those who are going back there, he's going to fire up because it's a fight for our life going on right now. I remember a few years ago, everybody was saying, you watch Fox News, oh, you've got to get rid of Freddie and Fannie, they're horrible. FHA is miserable. All these things are bad. And I had some of my colleagues saying, well, we need just to get rid of all the GSEs. The government shouldn't get involved in real estate. FHA has no place out there. Look at how bad they're doing. And I remember 2008, I looked at the numbers, and there was about $2.7 trillion lost in the financial service sector on mortgages. And I looked, and Freddie and Fannie lost $180 billion of that. And I said, 2.7 trillion, they lost 180 billion, and they have 70% of the marketplace. Some are doing pretty good. Now, did they make some mistakes? They absolutely made some mistakes, without a doubt. And I started working on legislation in 2010 to reform them, to create a new facility that got rid of the hybrid that you saw with Freddie and Fannie. I think the biggest mistake Freddie and Fannie did, they went public. And by public, they sold stock to stockholders, so they became accountable to stockholders rather than looking what their original mission and intent should have been. And their intent was to provide liquidity to the marketplace, period. They're supposed to be countercyclical, meaning that when the market starts to really do well and there's adequate liquidity in the marketplace, they should pull down. When the marketplace becomes illiquid, like you saw happen in 2007, that's when countercyclical organizations like FHA and GSEs move up. Now, you've heard recently, oh, FHA is horrible, look at all the money they've lost. Yeah, they lost money, but their losses are from 2007 to 2009. Because when the market dried up, FHA moved in rapidly. And what they did, I guess you can say they didn't have a crystal ball. Bernanke didn't have a crystal ball. Nobody had a crystal ball. Nobody expected this to be as bad as it was next to the Great Depression. And they moved in, started making loans rapidly, and they underestimated the risk associated with those loans. And they lost money between 2007 and 2009. Their losses were purely due to the market dropping like it did and home values dropping. Now, you saw how awful FHA is in recent years, but that's when they're going to turn around. You also heard that the GSEs have to go, there's no place for them. And in 2010, I started getting ready to introduce legislation that the Association of Realtors and Home Builders and Mortgage Brokers and Bankers all have endorsed. And I think I was one of the few Republicans that said, no, they're viable, they've done a great job, we can go back and look and see what they did wrong, and you know what, let's fix it. When you have a group like Fannie Mae that only lost money 1 year in 1985, and you say, show me one lender that has done that well, especially when they came into business in the 1930s, who's done that well. Freddie never lost a dime until this downturn. And I started saying, this is how you can fix them. We can create a new facility. Then all of a sudden, we saw, I was working with the Treasury Secretary, we saw Freddie and Fannie start to restructure and reorganize internally. And Leslie Kulaguchi works with me. I call her Fudd because she's a doctor and I won't call her doctor, so she's Fudd. We started laughing. We started saying, look at the reforms they're implementing. And Jerry Giovanelli, the head of your association, said they're doing the reforms we talked about in the bill. And all of a sudden, to my colleagues who don't think they're worthy, I have to realize this year that they earned more money and are paying more money back to the Treasury than they have ever done in history. Because they basically reformed Freddie and Fannie, based their risk on underwriting standards and market accountability, and they're trustworthy today, and they have a good program and it's up and working, and it's going to cause our industry to come back. But what we've done, unlike what we lent the banks, when we did TARP, you heard the TARP in 2008 when things plummeted, we lent banks all the money. Well, we lent them money at 5% interest. We charged Freddie and Fannie 10% on their money. Now, how many of you are making loans for Freddie and Fannie in the 3% rate? And we charge them 10%. So not only did they take and pay back the interest at 10%, they paid a huge amount of profit back to pay down the debt and the money we lent them. So I've got some colleagues out there that are saying, well, they wanted to shut them down, now what do we do? And I'm Vice Chairman of the Financial Services Committee, and I've always been an adamant belief in the fact that we need to keep FHA, we need to keep GSEs, but we absolutely need to restructure them. Should there be some form of an implied government guarantee? If you don't have it, especially right now, the market will dry because people just will not invest. The market's turning. There's some battles we have to deal with out there. They want to change policies. They want to take it and say, well, let's just get rid of the GSEs. Let's get rid of the mortgage interest deduction. That's got to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. If you get rid of the mortgage interest deduction, what is it going to do to your sales out there? They're going to plummet. Now, I have some good friends who absolutely on the opposite side of the GSEs from me. Did they make mistakes? Yes. Can you define where they made the mistakes? Yes. Can you show a path to fixing them? Yes. But some people want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, let's just get rid of them because they did poorly once. But you have to look and say, let's look at default rates. Who did the best? VA. Lowest default rate out there. Whose default rate was the lowest other than them? FHA. And third, whose default rate was next to them? Freddie and Fannie. And then they are all outperforming the private marketplace. So if we're going to get rid of anybody, let's get rid of the private marketplace if you're dealing strictly on default rates, because they are performing worse than the private sector. And I've always pointed out the fact, you've heard all these stories about people losing money on mortgage-backed securities. Not one investor in this country or world has ever lost money on a mortgage-backed security by the GSEs, by Freddie and Fannie, because they were guaranteed a return and they received it. Now, if you bought a mortgage-backed security from your country or one of those other groups, you lost money. Because the way they're bundled, they can't take the non-performing assets out and replace them with a performing asset. So our industry is coming back, it's recovering. You need to fight for your life right now. Wherever you're from, you need to go to members of Congress and say, use your head and look at the facts. Now, you got some good speakers today, and what I admire about the speakers is they purely base their decision on facts and figures. And I do the same thing. When they say get rid of Freddie and Fannie and FHA, the facts don't lead me to come to that conclusion. So we're in a recovery. I've never in my life seen a recovery that wasn't led off by the housing industry. And now the market's starting to come back. The economy's starting to come back. Isn't it amazing? People starting to buy houses, people go back to work. So our industry is essential to that, the building industry, the real estate industry, and all the associated entities within it, whether it be the banks, the mortgage brokers, the title companies, whatever it might be. If you're an escrow agent, whatever, it takes all these entities working together to create a healthy industry we have today. So my belief, we're starting to win. Our message is starting to resonate, but at this point in time, we cannot give up. The market's recovering, it's turning, and it's turning to our benefit. And when I say it's turning to our benefit, it's turning into our constituents and people who pay taxes in this country. What always infuriated me is when my members in Congress would say, we need to protect the taxpayers. And I said, aren't homeowners taxpayers? So if you eliminate the opportunity for them to be able to get a loan to buy a home or sell a home, and if you're just going to be going out there with cash buyers, you couldn't give away a house. And if you did, you'd pick it up for nothing. Thank you for having me. I barged at the last moment, but fight for your rights. God bless you.
Thank you, Congressman Miller. Nice, on time and everything. So the congressman has potentially some conflicts in his schedule. He may stick around. We'll see. He's got to apparently check some things with staff to see whether or not he's got to get out of here now. He may actually hang around for our Q&A after Bruce and Chris are done speaking. So I don't know if you noticed, the congressman used the word recovery at least, I wasn't counting, but I think he used it at least a half a dozen times. Be curious to see how often that word is used by Bruce and Chris moving forward as it relates to the market. So one thing, matter of fact, let me quickly put this phone number on the screen here. Hold on a second. Okay. Obviously, we don't do a lot of these, so we're not super slick in our presentation as far as our PowerPoints go. At any rate, I'm assuming that we're going to have some questions from the audience. Who's been to a conference like this more than once in their life? Okay. Who's at the end at the Q&A had to listen to people stand up and ask the stupidest questions on the planet? Okay. We're not going to give anybody a microphone. They're not going to at the end of the thing. Number one, Bruce will take questions, but he will not take questions until after he's done speaking and after Chris is done speaking. So if Bruce says something that catches your eye, or if Chris says something that catches your eye and you want to ask a question, we will have a Q&A later, but we're not going to pass around microphones. So that's my cell phone number. Did I type it right? If you've got a question, keep it brief, text it to me. I will be the arbitrator as to whether your question is of value or not. And then we'll filter them out that way. To get these guys in the same room and then to have a Q&A, and to be honest with you, waste it on somebody dribbling on about something, we're not going to do that. So I apologize for those of you that wanted to do that. So without any further ado, has everybody got my number? Yes. Okay, we're going to bring up Bruce Norris. Bruce Norris is with the Norris Group, and by the way, we've got his son Aaron, and I saw Greg around here somewhere. There's Greg. Greg's not allowed to sit with Bruce and Aaron. There's separation of powers, something going on there. So, and then Diana is here somewhere as well. Diana is, I believe, pretty much the glue that keeps that team together over there, best I can tell. So, I've had the opportunity to meet and know Bruce now for a few years. Over the last couple of years, we've had an opportunity to work a little closer on some of the projects and stuff he's done. And again, if you've never had the opportunity to listen to Bruce Norris speak, you are in for a treat. So without any further ado, I'll get your PowerPoint set up, and everybody welcome Bruce Norris.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Bruce Norris speaking between Congressman Miller and Christopher Thornburg. That's a pretty good day for me. How many of you are hearing me speak for the first time? Wow, about 40%. Okay, probably why I'm standing here is because we have developed over the years a way to figure out the cycles in California. And why that's necessary is that we're investors, we buy houses. I haven't always done it right. In 1989 and a half, the market seemed exactly as it did in 05. Everything you touched turned to a profit, it went up, exceeded your expectations, and you thought real estate contained no risk. So I decided I'd build 7 custom homes in Palm Springs, and I got them done in the summer of 1990. We bought a golf cart that held 8 people because we knew how many people would come see the property simultaneously, and they were on scattered lots in a gated subdivision, and we thought we would need this vehicle to take customers around. And when we ran a full-page ad in the Palm Springs paper in the summer of 1990, we never got a phone call. No one ever got on the golf cart. And I was stuck with 7 $3,000 a month payments, and I gradually got rid of those properties, but I learned to respect the fact that the California market can turn. Anyway, sorry about that. In 1995, 5 years after I got done with those homes, my son Aaron graduates from high school, and buy him as a gift a Honda Civic for $15,700. The only reason I remember that is 2 days later I bought a 3-bedroom house in Riverside for $13,300. And I just really thought, how does that happen? How does real estate go from where we were in '89 to where we are in '95? Because since you're realtors, I can have you understand how bad the market was. It was a FHA property on the HUD list that had to pass through every owner-occupant saying, I don't want it, before I got a chance to buy it. It was listed for 15 grand, and because no one wanted it, I got to bid the maximum underbid and get it for 13.3. That's how bad the market was. The home rented for $500. But no one was interested. I was the only bidder. So that's the mindset of real estate. So it scared me, and I thought, okay, I wonder if we're ever going to do what we did before. Are we ever going to have another 1989? And I thought somebody must have figured this whole thing out. So I started looking for somebody's report about long-term projections on price. And the only way I knew how to do it was go into the library, and I looked up microfiche. And if there was an article written about price and had California real estate attached to it, I read the article from 1970 to 1995, 25 years. No one ever said in 1974, you know what, in the next 6 years prices are going to triple in real estate, but they did. No one said it. What they said was it was always going to end. 96, they said it was going to stop, 97, 98, always was going to stop. And I thought, I don't know if it's possible, but I'm going to see if maybe I can figure out when the market changes. And so I started an 18-month journey that I would study all kinds of stuff. I would buy books for $1,200 that contained valuable pieces of information. And in January of '97, we wrote a report called The California Comeback, Why Prices Will Double in the Next 8 Years. And when that started to happen, we got invited to speak some more. And by the way, it's a lot more fun talking about an upside than it is a downside. In 2006, we wrote a report called The California Crash, why foreclosures are going to go up thousands %, why prices are going to drop. And when that started happening too, then we understood we had at least both sides of the equations fairly well pegged in California. It's an ongoing study. In July, we have another event called the California Comeback #2, Fast, Furious, and Dangerous. What you're seeing in this marketplace shouldn't have occurred. It's all been manufactured by policy. But it doesn't make it any less profitable to enjoy a price increase. And what we're going to talk about today is the likelihood of that continuing. And if you're trying to figure out a business plan, we'll talk about that at the end, because it will be profitable to be touching California real estate in 2013. My company, the Norris Group, I'm going to stray a little bit, or I don't know, that's stationary. My company, well, that's the first thing I did wrong. My company is basically an investment company. Greg, my oldest son, runs a property buying division. Somewhere between 120 to 150 times a year, we buy properties, fix them up, and resell them. We have a hard money loan business that loans about 400 to 500 loans now a year. So, well, you combine that, we're looking at about 40 to 50 wholesale deals a month, and where they come from and how they get sold and how much they sell for. All of those things, a piece of information. And we can see the trends, where the deals came from. 3 years ago, it was all REO. Gradually, that's transitioned to short sales, away from REO. Now it's transitioning back to buying from private parties and building homes. So that's what you have to do as an industry, too, is you have to think, where is somebody going to be touching the next piece of real estate? How can I get someone involved in owning a property? And it's called, I guess, farming. You have to farm equity like you used to. And that's part of what we have to do as well. We have an education side of our business, and I'd like to invite you in October to where we have a panel of very distinguished people. We'll be the president of the Mortgage Bankers Association, the Appraisal Institute, I think. No? Not this year? Okay. Anyway, Leslie Appleton Young, Christopher Thornburg we're trying to get, and so forth. And what we do there is we raise a lot of money for charity. And first of all, that's the goal for the evening, is to raise something between $60,000 and $70,000. For this year, it will probably be Make-A-Wish. And you'll be in an audience, and we'll be allowed to question this panel. These people on the panel a lot of times are approaching Congress for lobbying for our industry. So it's an important night. So if you haven't been there, how many of you have been there? I'm just curious. Quite a few. I thank you for your support, really do. We have a radio show. Go to our website, and I interview people like Christopher Thornburg. My favorite thing about interviewing Christopher Thornburg is I don't have to know the answers to the questions I'm asking him. And believe it or not, that's very rare. I almost always know the answer because I don't want somebody embarrassed. When Christopher's on the show, I actually ask the questions I want to know the answers to. So that's kind of fun. Our basic business model is we take this house and we turn it into that house. And we also fix our rentals to look like that. So if you rent from me, you started out with a perfect house with granite even in the bathrooms. And we did that for a couple reasons. We did it because I thought it might attract a better tenant. I thought they'd stay a longer time. And all those things have panned out to be true. This was a real transaction. This home sold for $356,000 at the peak of the market. We bought it for a little less than that, $65,000. Put $30,000 in it, kept it as a rental. The problem for our market is that across the street somebody owes $356,000 on their house. And for the last 5 or 6 years, what we have been watching is trying to figure out how do we get that solved. Do we foreclose on everybody, or do we just ignore people that are late? Do we forgive the debt? What do we do? And so you've watched this go through lots of gyrations as we've tried to figure out what to do. This is a chart showing, I'm afraid to point. Do we have a pointer here?
We do.
Can't see it from this far down there. This is a progression of delinquencies, and this is a progression of trustee sales. And usually there's a correlation. The defaults or the delinquencies that are 90 days late usually get a notice of default recorded, and 2 quarters later they turn into a trustee sale. So there's usually a correlation by about 2 months. You have this 4.2% and this 1.2% connected. So 4.2% delinquencies turned into 1.2% trustee sales, and 11.3% delinquencies turned into 0.8 trustee sales. Now, it doesn't take a math genius to figure out that shouldn't have happened. What should have happened would be something like 4 times the amount of foreclosure should have occurred. Here's the problem with that. At the time that we had 1.2% foreclosures in the market, San Bernardino had 24 months of inventory. So if you had done that, you'd had 8 years of inventory at San Bernardino MLS. You know what the prices would have done? You'd have had one, buy one, get 3 free. So what they did was say, let's just not foreclose on people for a while until we recalibrate what we're going to do. Basically, the game started in 2008. They've never stopped. They've been declining and declining and declining. If you're like Mike Novak Smith and you're trying to do a business plan of having a bunch of REOs, you used to be able to look at the default list and say, well, that's probably going to convert to an REO a fair amount of time, and then guess what? It didn't. So that's been the problem. Foreclosure inventory has been on the decline for people that are waiting for the shadow inventory to explode. I don't think it's going to show up. Sales have been good. Sales have been consistently good. That's not been our problem. But here's our debt level. We got up to $11 trillion, and it's declined, and then now it's going back up because people are doing healthy loans and borrowing healthy money. But what we had to do was we had to realize that when prices went down the way they did in California, that's interesting. There we go. We went down from almost 600,000 to under 250. We owed all this money when we got to this price. So that chart of $11 trillion had a lot of money on top of real estate that wasn't worth it anymore. And so you can't just forgive $5 trillion of debt. So everything that we have been watching has been an attempt to get that debt to feel more bearable. Why would you stay and make your payment on something when you're 100% over-encumbered? What if we could get you to be 50% over-encumbered or 20% over-encumbered, and will you keep your payments going? And that's what all of this has been done for, is to try and make this market not just crash and burn worse than it already had. One of the ways you're going to do that, if you're trying to solve what I call the debt from the bottom up, how do we get prices to go up? And by the way, is that being successful? Yes. Yeah, prices are starting to move. You just make payments ridiculously low. So in the Inland Empire, you save about $550 a month going from renter to owner. Now, how often have I ever gotten to say that in California? Save money from going from renter to owner. Is that unprecedented? Yeah, it's unprecedented. And that's a word I will use a little bit this morning. It's unprecedented because you have an interest rate that's today, what, 3.4%? When's the last time we had that rate? Leslie Appleton-Young does a presentation, and in her presentation she says that these interest rates are the lowest in 50 years. So I called her and I asked her, where did you get that number? And she said, well, I got it from one of the data sources. So I called the data source and said, where did you get that number? They said, that's as far back as our data goes. I said, oh, okay. So being the nerd nut that I am, and Sean O'Toole and I went back to Washington, D.C., literally went to the Library of Congress, took out the microfiche from 1850 on, and on a Sunday where you advertise real estate interest rates, we went forward every month for 100 years. And I can tell you that no one alive has seen these interest rates. Now, what that does is set off an unprecedented set of dominoes. Because what happens to price now what happens to your monthly payment when prices go up 50 grand and it's attached to a 3.4% mortgage rate? Not a lot. You know, is it going to break the bank? People really can't qualify? No. As a matter of fact, if your rent is $550 more than your house payment ends up, prices can accelerate an awful lot before you tie rent. And there's audiences that I usually talk to that aren't realtors, and so I ask them, all things being equal, exact payment, rent or ownership of a house, how many of you would rather rent than own? You know how many hands get raised in an audience this size? One. One time I asked that question, it was an economist. I thought that was interesting. You know the easiest way to own a home free and clear? Just own two. In California, that's a fact. Let the one ride and sell it, pay off your mortgage. You can wait to pay off your 30-year mortgage if you want to, but it's a quicker plan. Anyway, so if we're going to try and solve this, let's make the payment so ridiculously low, and we have that now. Other investments are very volatile, or they don't pay anything. So if you want a 10-year T-bill, what's it paying at, 1.7 something? Or invest in the stock market, and every time somebody coughs over in Greece or whatever, it's volatile. I've got gray hair now. You know what? The last thing I want to hear attached to my investments is the word volatility. That does not excite me. So I'm excited about where I have my money. And honestly, what's interesting, I've been on cruises sometimes where you're sitting next to people maybe you're not familiar with. You can tell they're nervous. And they're, how are you doing today? You hear what's going on in the stock market? 500-point down day. And I'm going, I don't really care. I have trustees and property. I'm having a better cruise than you are. Sorry about that. If you're going to try and solve this, maybe reduce inventory for sale. So now we're below 3 months, and there's areas that you're probably below 3 days. It's ridiculous. Greg, my son, pulled up a zip code in Riverside. There's 4 houses for sale. Probably not by the end of the day. That's a little bit of a problem. The type of listing and the mix has changed. A lot of them now becoming equity sales. And the REOs certainly have swapped places with the short sales. So the short sales are one of the dominant things. I'm going to quickly go through some of these charts because they're the same chart. LA, Orange County, this is declining of inventory. Basically, these charts went from 6 months to 1.5 for LA, 1.3, 2.2 in Riverside, 2.1 San Bernardino, 1.5 at San Diego. So you've gone from 6 months to 2 months, let's say. A third of the inventory. How do you go back to 6 months? How do you triple an inventory? You ever thought about that? Well, it's an interesting thing. I just heard the comment, well, prices will go up. Well, here's a good thing for you to check. When's the last time inventory went down when prices went up? So you ought to think about that. If it's never happened before, why would you expect it to happen now? And I'm not going to tell you if it's ever happened. Take a look at that. Because sometimes we assume things. How many of you guys are worried about interest rates going up? Nobody? Okay. I hear that, oh, if interest rates went up, then, market's dead. No, it's not. You know what happens? You now have a twin burner to make a decision. I was a buyer in the 70s in property. 70s interest rates went from 7.5 to 15. What happened to price? It tripled. It tripled. People were signing up for 13.5% mortgages. Why? Because they could still afford the payment, and because their recent history said touching real estate makes me very happy. And so they rationalized it was perfectly fine. We don't have that problem today. If interest rates went up, if you woke up tomorrow morning and it was 5%, you'd go, oh, that's terrible. Then look at an interest rate chart and you won't feel so bad. Is that terrible? No, we've never had that. In my adult life, I refinanced my house to become an investor in 1981, perfect timing, at 17.5% fixed. So to have anything under 5 to me is just completely bragging rights. 20 years from now, somebody's going to ask you, what's your mortgage rate? And you're going to tell them it's 3.5, and they're going to go, I'm going to kill you. You know, it's just too good to be true. So we have all this inventory declining. Has our demand diminished? Okay, so here's what the deal is for 2013. Go to Riverside. Okay. All of the demand that was here is now landing on this inventory. So 3 times as many people are interested in this little pile. What do you think happens to price when that goes up? And how do you solve that inventory problem in the next 12 months? You're going to end up with 6 months of inventory at the end of 2013? I'd sure like to know where it's going to come from, but we're going to talk about that. You also have some competitors that we've never had before. So you have these billion-dollar hedge funds coming into the marketplace. How many of you have lost commissions, with them buying something? Very few of you? Okay, no, there we go. As a sore point, I see, okay. They're buying lots of properties. Instead of foreclosing, lenders are selling the loans in bulk. FHA plans to sell 40,000 loans in 2013. Carrington, I just interviewed Rick Sharga from Carrington. That's one of the things that they will do is buy note pools. If you buy an FHA note pool, do you foreclose on it? You recast the loan with the owner. They can't foreclose on it for at least 6 months. And the most profitable thing for them to do is recast the loan and keep it. So properties, remember the good old days where we used to go to HUD auctions? You can see a HUD auction in 2013. That's not the way we're doing it. Fannie Mae selling homes in bulk. California, they're probably not going to do that, but on the East Coast, they did it. They had a 500 house bulk sale. You know what the discount was for 500 houses? Nothing. Full retail, 500 houses. Now, why would anybody do that? First of all, they're below replacement costs, and second of all, have you ever tried to buy 500 houses one at a time? It takes a while. So you got all these people with $1 billion. They would be more than happy to write a check for 500 houses at one time if it served their purpose. So all these REOs that probably should have landed on somebody's desk locally are not going to do that. They have programs now where you take a deed in lieu of foreclosure. So that's going on. We also are just not building anything. So there's our chart of Riverside County for building. So don't get too excited when they say, well, building has doubled. Yeah, building's doubled. It means like in that month you built 8 more houses. It's going to do well, but it's not there yet. I hear that all the time. I'm building houses everywhere. That's why I like charts. See, this is everywhere. This is not everywhere. Now, what that means is the percentage of stuff coming from builders that used to compete with the existing inventory, it isn't showing up yet. So how confident are builders? Think they're really confident? Here's how you can tell. How many subdivisions are they creating? So let me ask you a question. How long does it take, let's say tomorrow morning I wake up and say, I think the California market's going to do a lot better. I'm going to create a subdivision because I need a building lot. When's that building lot going to show up and be ready to go? A couple years or so. So these builders can't catch up with a subdivision. You can't just magically get one when you want one. And they didn't know this was going to happen. And it doesn't pencil yet. You can have homes still in areas all over the Inland Empire that you can't make a case for, let's carve this lot out of this hill because it's too expensive and it won't pencil. So this is going to take a while to catch up. So what's going to be for sale is properties that are going to be owned by people. We also are doing things we've never done now from the top down. To provide relief more quickly, Chase executives are addressing borrower fatigue. Apparently when you have stopped making your payment for more than 2 years, you get tired. I don't know, it's a phenomenon, that's what happens. So, they get a letter sent to the borrowers notifying them that their loan was refinanced into a new mortgage with a lower interest rate, no documentation needed. So that's a no-doc refi. You didn't even ask for it, it showed up. The problem is you don't often open your mail anymore, so you didn't know what happened. There's another program that says Chase is sending different letters to other underwater borrowers. All that's required for a principal reduction on their loan is a signature sent back with a self-addressed stamped envelope the bank provides. The problem with that is only 9% of the people open the mail. So they had to send a follow-up letter that said, if we don't hear from you in 30 days, the discount applies. So there's probably lots of people walking around think they owe money, but they don't. So try to solve it from the top down. We forgive the debt, we do short sales, we even pay the former owner money to approve a short sale, and we keep modifying, so that's what we're doing. The share of sales is starting to shift to equity sellers. Short sales have been pretty consistent. This is going to be a declining category. So if you're going to get the 6 months of inventory to show up, it's going to have to come from this group. Problem with Riverside is, don't we have still a fair amount of people upside down? So that inventory that you want to pull from is hamstrung by maybe 35%. So all of this inventory that was showing up, let's say in the boom of the early 2000s, was equity sellers. By the way, what do equity sellers do after they sell? They buy land. So how are you going to catch up in that category? So everyone has equity, they sell. What do you think, they're going to go off to, Nevada? Or not often. See, Californians buy houses again. So that's what's going to happen. So I really have a hard time figuring out where this big pile of inventory is going to show up. As a matter of fact, if you do a short sale and you're current on your payment, can't you rebuy a house right away using FHA? I don't know the statistics of this, but I would be interested in knowing how many short sales are now current. Because that used to be a problem with the lender even thinking about that, and I'm sure they're more open to it than they've ever been. I was worried about the hedge fund's participation. What if they leave? Do we have enough normal demand to keep what's going on going? And what I did is and this actually came from Greg telling me stories about us selling properties. So early 2012, we usually buy a property, we put it in the MLS as soon as it's vacated, and have a description of what we're going to do to the house. And in early 2012, we would actually get to do that stuff to the house, and then we'd sell it. And then as 2012 progressed, Greg would tell me stories of, okay, we're now starting to get offers as is at full price. And then toward the end of 2012, we were having pricing, we were having a contest to who got to buy it for more than asking price, as is. And sometimes, because of the lack of inventory, he's telling me, I'm paying for something I think I'm going to have to wait 6 months to sell, and then it would sell in 60 days. And I thought, okay, well, why is that happening? I don't see employment improving that much, and I don't see migration happening, so why has that happened? And I started thinking about looking at other charts. This is the chart, one of the charts I landed on that helped me understand. This is the amount of people foreclosed in Riverside County in a 2-year period, 08 and 09. Unprecedented? Yes. Now what that though set up was an unprecedented pile of people coming off the sidelines wanting to repurchase. If you can save $500 a month going from renter to owner, you're going to do it. And so that big pile of demand is 165% of 2011 sales. So this is consistent. That's why this number is consistent. This big pile of former owners landed in 2011 and 12 and said, we're interested. That group has not been satisfied because they've been often beat out by a hedge fund buyer or an all-cash investor. So they're still waiting to get satisfied. And in the 2010 group of 22,000, which is 65% of annual sales, are piling in on 2013. You don't have any trouble with demand. I don't care if a hedge fund disappears, you'll have a replacement occupant buyer. And to be honest with you, I really wish the hedge funds weren't messing with residential real estate. I just don't think it's a healthy thing. I know that they could care less about the industry, and it's just a group that thinks of yields and returns. It's a little bit like can you imagine yourself, first-time buyer, trying to get an FHA loan, and the property shows up in the Riverside MLS, and you're asked, can you pay closing costs? What are the odds of that happening? It's just non-existent in this market. It's because of the competition. It's a little like being an outsider when somebody has an IPO and that opening day stock price is $5, but you're not an insider. And what do you get to buy it at? Like about $9 in about 3 seconds. That's what this feels like, is that we're not having the occupant owner participating as much as it probably should be. San Bernardino's got even a worse case of foreclosures, and then therefore it extrapolates into more buyers than they've ever had. So where's the inventory going to come from? Is it going to be REOs? No. One of the radio interviews we did was with 3 of the top local REO agents, and they're not being told to staff up and get ready for the glut of REOs. Private owners with equity, well, we talked about that. Yes, they're going to come from that, but they're hamstrung by some of them having negative equity. Short sale, just because you have a short sale possibility doesn't mean you want to do it. Before the interview on the radio, Lance told me he went to Moreno Valley and door knocked 10 houses. And 6 of those people were there, and he was telling them, like, you know what, if you cooperate with the short sale, we can stop your foreclosure, probably actually even get you some money for doing the deal. And 0 out of 6 participated. No one was interested in that. So why would they do that? What have they had for housing costs in the last 24 months? Nothing. You could get used to that. Every once in a while, we'll see an article in the newspaper. They're interviewing somebody that haven't made their payment in over 2 years. So how's it going? Oh, life is just it's so much better since we stopped making our payments. We've been able to go on vacation. Okay, so that's what's going on. Investor flips. We have a loan business that tells us the inclination of someone buying and selling it, or buying and holding as an investor. And about 50% of our loan portfolio now is an 8-year loan that investors borrow money to hold property. So what used to be bought and resold is not happening all the time. And new construction we already talked about. So you're going to have to go from wherever we are in Riverside, 2 months to 6 months on just this pile. Ain't going to happen. So you're stuck maybe with this inventory level for 2013. You know what you ought to do as a realtor? Become an investor too. Make your effort both things, to represent people, but maybe buy something once in a while too. There's a business that we're in that's changed a lot. This is the discount that the industry that buys at the trustee sales gets for buying a house we never see inside, don't get title insurance, have to probably do cash for keys to an owner that's disgruntled, and never know what the repair bill is. Now, amazingly, Greg has pulled this off for the last 2 or 3 years in a very profitable way, but the discount for the industry is not even 1%. So you could go next door and say, I'll tell you what, I will pay you. By the way, what's the typical closing cost for a transaction? 10%? Sales and all that stuff? You could go next door and say, I'll tell you what, you'll net exactly the same amount as you would if you listed it. I'll pay you 90 cents on the dollar, and you would be getting a discount that far exceeds the business, the industry of buying at trustee sales right now. That's pretty astonishing. That's how tough the market is to get inventory. The trustee sales, and this is again, where's the inventory coming from? We used to go back to the bank nugget spot. The trustee sales have not resold. These large hedge funds that have made their living now buying and holding properties have gone to the trustee sales and raised the price to where it's not profitable to resell them, but they're keeping them. So a lot of the properties that used to be resold, they're not being resold. We used to go to trustee sale and that gets sold in bulk or renegotiated via loan mod. We used to go to trustee sale, now gets sold via short sale. And the policy has been, instead of foreclosing, you can take all the time you want. Over 40% of the properties in foreclosure nationally are over 2 years in the making. The large companies, there's quite a number of them. This is what they look for. A single-family home or townhome, 1,000 to 4,000 square feet, built in 1970 or newer, 2 to 5 bedrooms, 2 to 4 baths. And what percentage of inventory in Riverside does that cover? Pretty much most of it. Okay, so they're interested. What's interesting about this, and since I'm doing a new report, I'm having to look all the stuff up. One thing I was very interested in is finding out exactly how much these guys own and where they own it. And so one chapter is designated to figure out that exact scenario, because these guys are market makers in a sense that if they want to land in a city like Sacramento and buy everything in sight, prices are going to go up. When they want to rent all those homes that they just bought, they're going to be market maker in rent. And the day they sell, they could be a market maker when they sell it. So we really do have to pay attention to kind of what they're doing. They buy from every source that we normally buy in, so they have been quite a competitor. I've asked Greg, and he's honored my request. We do not sell properties to hedge funds. We get offers on them, but we say no, just so you know. And the reason is because of the industry that we are part of that's allowed us to get where we are. That's you guys. And it's the local people that we support, and the local escrows and all that. To me, that's an important thing. So I don't like hedge funds. They're an arrogant group of people, to be honest with you. I've talked to a number of them. One of them, in a talk I was doing, came up to me afterwards. He said, "I've heard of your reputation. I think your business is great, and I really feel sorry for you." And I said, "Really?" I said, "Why is that?" He says, "Well, it's obvious, you won't be in business with people like us around." I thought, wow, that's a pretty arrogant thing to say. And I said, "You know what your only skill is?" I said, you're able to attract a bunch of money and you don't care how you spend it. And I said, "I've had my phone number for a long time. 5 years from now, call me, I'll pick up the phone." See, nothing like ticking me off to make me more determined. What's about to happen, you probably already noticed, is the media starts to participate in telling you the real estate story. They were very good at telling you it's terrible, and now they're going to participate in it's wonderful. And so from now on, you're going to see the media participate in saying things are going to get better. When prices go up, it encourages the owners with negative equity to keep making payments. California has now 25%, this is down to a number that's not been here for a while, as far as negative equity. When we have a 20% price increase in 2013, which I think we will, we're going to have half of those people have equity. And then it's all over, because then you'll have so few people behind, it won't be the big impact in the marketplace, and we'll be off and running. So you also add it to the number of move-up buyers. We have a woman in our office who had gone through a divorce, bought a home in February of 2012 for $205. By October, it was $285. She refined it, got rid of PMI. In a discussion by the copier, she's lit up, she's got this low payment, she buys a car, and now her house is worth $325. One house, okay? So do you think she's quiet about that? No, she's telling everybody with an ear that say, "Hey, this is my real estate story." That adds to the interest, and it adds to the first-time buyer interest. Here's the kicker. Eventually, prices rise to the point where you're going to have profitable construction. And once you start having profitable construction, you solve a lot of the rest of California's unemployment problems, because construction is not a standalone activity. You get manufacturing involved, you get occupancy of commercial real estate. It solves a lot of things. And all that's about to happen. The unemployment, and I'm really excited to hear what Christopher has to say. I think his opinions are real important to hear. And I hope we're going to get to disagree about something today, because it's fun to bat it around with them too. It's very often I disagree with somebody that I know is more intelligent than myself. And trust me, whenever I disagree with somebody, I go back to my sources and go, okay, have I incorrectly concluded anything? Because that's important. California is going to tighten this up. And what happens when California and the United States unemployment number gets in line is that we win the migration battle. People would rather be here. If you're in the construction business, you could go to Utah and hammer nails at 0-degree weather in December, but if you can do it at 60-degree weather in December, you would rather do that, and you'll show up here. And so all of that's about to happen. And by the way, that's the normal process for what we call California comeback, is that you have improved construction, improve the rest of the employment picture, which improves migration, which improves the budget. All of that's about to play out fast forward because we have a 3% interest rate to enjoy for who knows how long. Just real quickly, I'm going to go to the very end here. If you were thinking California, we should stick a fork in it. This is an interesting chart. This is a report that comes out where the venture capital goes. So all the venture capital comes into the country. Where does it land? 50% of it lands in California. Half of all venture capital shows up here to take a risk. And that's some pretty bright people making a pretty repetitive decision. So I have a feeling they're probably right. Thank you guys for having me, and we'll be back.
Thank you, Bruce. You gotta love Bruce. Give him a hand.
Yeah.
A couple quick things. The little problem with the questions. I got several questions while Bruce was speaking. The problem was they came from Greg Norris, Aaron Norris, and Diane, and they all are on Bruce's team. So I was a little confused. No, anyway, we did get a couple of good questions. Does anybody still need that phone number? Anybody got a question they want to ask us? I can put it back up on the screen if you need it. If you need real quick, if you didn't write it down earlier, or if I don't already have my cell on your phone, it's 951-313-2167. Just text me quick. We have half a dozen good ones. And actually, a good one did come from Greg, so we're going to give him a little bit of credit for that. And it wasn't necessarily for his dad. So anyway, before we bring up Chris Thornburg, Brian needs to do a little magic with the PowerPoint here and make that happen. So I get to tap dance for 3 or 4 minutes. I want to comment on a couple of things that Bruce had mentioned. Specifically, he told the story that I shared with Bruce, I don't know, 6 months ago or a year ago, I don't know, about going out door knocking with some of my agents. And I think actually a few of those agents are in the room that I was out door knocking on that specific story. We're knocking doors, we knock on 10 doors, 6 people are home, which was interesting because I think it was a Thursday afternoon. We were out between 1 and 3 o'clock, and when you have 60% of the people you're knocking doors that are home, I thought that was kind of a commentary on the market itself. And it wasn't necessarily that it was mom home taking care of kids, it was just, it seemed like the family was home. So, just from an employment standpoint, it's kind of interesting when you find that many people at home on a Thursday afternoon at 1 o'clock. However, his numbers were correct. There's just one little thing I want to add. Of the 10 doors that we knocked, by the way, every single door that we knocked was in default. And most of those did not just have a notice of notice of default file, they had a notice of sale file. So for those of you in the room that are of my ilk, okay, well, you've got a pretty short window, in theory, a pretty short window before the bank potentially could come in and take that property away, 21 days. So Bruce is correct that of those 6 people we spoke to, we convinced nobody that we were there providing any value, and we walked away. Not only did we not walk away with a listing, we didn't walk away with an appointment or literally any glimmer that they were interested in talking to us, which could be a commentary on my sales skills. However, so at any rate, it should, Rose, I know where you work. Okay, so anyway, that could be a commentary on our sales skills. The one thing I want to add to that was, a lot of agents in the room, work prospectors, knocking doors, making phone calls, sending mailings, all the rest of that sort of stuff. In the old days, and I'll count the old days as pre-2008, okay, when you went out and you talked to 6 or 8 or 10 people that had noticed the sales file, You may not walk away with 6 or 8 or 10 listings or 6 or 8 or 10 appointments, but at least there was a sense of distress with these people, okay? They were stressed out. You could feel it. You didn't even, I mean, literally when the door opened, oh, it's another realtor. I know why they're here. And you could sense the stress with these people because they were in a stressful situation. They're literally, potentially days away from losing their property to a foreclosure sale. That was the main difference. That was the point of my conversation with Bruce was not so much that we didn't walk away with any business. The point is there was no stress for any of these people that were in theory a week away from losing their house to foreclosure. And of course the reason there was no stress gets back to half a dozen of Bruce's slides talking about, we've been since, in my opinion, September of 2008 with the moratoriums and modifications of all those programs. The stress that we had on the homeowner who was in default has literally been taken away to the point where there is no stress. And the reality was us knocking on their door telling them that they potentially were going to lose their house to foreclosure in 7 days, in reality was an untruth. Because the paperwork said they were going to lose it, but the reality of our marketplace said otherwise. And they knew it. Because people had been knocking on their doors for 2 and 3 years, telling them that, hey, you're going to lose your house in about another 10 days, you better talk to me. And they realized that they weren't. And guess what? And they didn't. I didn't go back necessarily to look at those 6 people, but I can pretty much assure you none of them lost their property foreclosure. Okay, so I think our PowerPoint's set up. Real quickly before we bring Chris up, I want to just kind of reintroduce him. I've been following Chris from afar. As a matter of fact, I probably could be characterized as a stalker of some sort. You may not realize this, but I've been following this guy around for going on about 7 years now. I think the first time I saw Chris speak was at a RioMat conference. I believe it was 06, when we were literally kind of at the top of the market. In my world, the top of the market is June of 06, at least as it relates to property values. That's certainly the case in Inland Empire. And I believe I saw Chris speak in April of 06, and by that time he had already come out publicly, although I wasn't aware of it, he had already come out and said, hey, we got a little problem here, okay? And I can remember sitting in the room, listening to him speak, and again, I was an REO guy, and thinking, yeah, I see it. And frankly, I was excited by it because I was looking forward to the prospect of a bunch of REOs, because that was partially in our wheelhouse. So at any rate, literally after that moment, who has not seen Christopher Thornburg speak before? Okay, half the room. You guys are in for a treat. By the way, when you saw the email that said, hey, Christopher Thornburg speaking, who knew the name and said, I need to come see this guy speak today? Same group of people. Okay. So, at any rate, you will not be disappointed. Like I said, I've attended, RioMat conference, 5-star conference, conferences all over the place, paid the $500 registration and the $2,000 for the flight in the room, frankly, to see this man speak for 60 minutes. And the rest of it was frankly, bar time. So, anyway, without any further ado, I'd like to bring up Christopher Thornburg of Beacon Economics. Thanks, Chris.
If I known you've been spending that much to see me talk, I would have charged you more for today.
Exactly.
Screwed up in a big way. All right, it's very nice to be here. To say the very least, the Inland Empire is a market. Although my company is officially based in LA, we do a tremendous amount of work out here with a lot of local city governments, county government. Of course, we actually do our own forecast conference out here. I don't know if you knew that. We do that on an annual basis. This fall we're doing it again. We do that with UC Riverside. So do keep an eye out for that. You can get an update of what you're going to hear today, plus a whole bunch of other additional information. I also want to thank Bruce. It's fairly rare for me to sit and hear my name being spoken so often without profanities coming before and or after statement of those particular names. And to some extent, I don't think I disagree too much with Bruce. If anything, I'm maybe a tad more optimistic than him about housing and where things are heading on that particular front. Although I would agree with him that in terms of a sales situation, that is to say the other side of the ledger you're working on, he's probably right in as much as sales aren't likely to come up very much, simply because those tight inventories are being driven not necessarily by policy, but obviously about all sorts of fundamentals, primarily all these folks who are underwater right now. I think the good news, of course, is that as prices do come up, a lot of those units which were previously underwater and no longer really able to be sold are going to start coming onto the market again. And so I do think you're going to see some slight increases in inventory over time, and hopefully your business is going to get a little better. But of course, I am getting ahead of myself, because really what I'm going to do up here today is give you a much broader view of the world. What's happening in the U.S., what's happening here in California, what's happening here in the Inland Empire, and I think most specifically is the question, is the current rally in real estate liable to be derailed, either by, say, fundamentals at the national level, local level, and or, of course, fundamentals in the real estate market itself. Well, if you couldn't tell by my picture here, my answer is almost certainly not. It isn't to say there aren't risk points out there, but for the most part, the economy today is actually a lot better than people think it is. Take, for example, what's happened over the course of the last few quarters. As you know, we had that abysmal growth rate in the fourth quarter, and the first quarter came in at less than 3%. But you got to forget about those underlying, those sort of headline numbers. What you got to do is look through the underlying detail. And indeed, what you see is an economy that actually picked up a lot of speed through the fourth quarter of last year to the first quarter of this year. Speed been driven by construction, the real estate resurgence, the fact that consumer spending continues to grow. You have state and local governments which started to turn the corner, and ultimately manufacturing is starting to pick up some speed again. All this is relatively good news. Now, I'm not saying that everything is fine. Of course it's not. Indeed, if you take a step back and think about where we are in a long-run standpoint, you see the U.S. economy has never really had the recovery that we're typically used to having after a strong downturn. You think about where that unemployment rate is today, it's still well above 7%. And it has to do with that sort of lack of recovery. Of course, we're also dealing with the ongoing saga having to do with sequestration and federal spending, and a little bit unclear what's going to happen there. And I'd love to tell you, but I can't really see the rest of my slides from here. I know there's more, but Bruce, can you help me out? What else does it say there? Lack of credit, of course. Yeah, actually, the lack of credit is one of my big worries, particularly in the housing front. We have to keep something in mind that, you know, we would have a much stronger recovery if indeed people go out and more easily obtain a various sort of mortgage loan. As for big risk items, they really boil down to, I think, two things. Politics and politics. But what I mean by two things is politics in Europe and, of course, politics in Washington, D.C. There's no reason in the world that the current recovery we're seeing should not only continue, but actually accelerate somewhat. The biggest risk we face, of course, is the I don't even know how to say it, the just ridiculous debates going on in D.C., the kind of just ridiculous, overstated rhetoric that seems to be driving these very important policy issues that our nation needs to deal with over the course of the next few years. Sadly, what they're doing is creating crises where crises do not need to exist. If they continue to do that and make it even worse, yeah, they could derail things. But I hope that the sense of self-preservation in Congress is strong enough to prevent them from doing something truly stupid. But I'm not sure where the odds are on that particular path. So let me go through some of this. First of all, let's talk a little about GDP growth. As already noted, yeah, fourth quarter not very good. First quarter came in relatively tepid. But again, forget those overarching numbers because they get moved around by all sorts of forces. What you really need to look at is business spending and consumer spending. And in those two particular categories, what you saw after a really weak middle 2012, consumers and businesses started coming back in the fourth and first quarter. Consumers in particular really chugged along in the first quarter, which caught a lot of folks by surprise because a lot of folks were expecting, in fact, the consumers to pull back, in part because of those tax increases we saw. What happened with the consumer, of course, is that while on one hand they are dealing with higher taxes, on the other side of the equation there's two other very good things happening for consumers. They're getting more jobs, they're making more money, and yes, also very important is the fact that real estate's in recovery mode, which is also an important driver of consumer spending, something we always have to keep in mind. Let's talk about the income piece. You know, it's interesting, there are two things that happened to sort of the American public over the course of the last 5 months or so. At the end of last year, because of anticipated changes in tax laws, there was an enormous movement of all that sort of liquid cash that has been tied up in corporate sector into what I would call the people sector, through, of course, bonuses and dividends and all sorts of things like that. Those moves, of course, were made in anticipation of higher tax rates that indeed did occur because of the negotiations at the end of 2012. Well, that was a nice little bonus. Obviously, it's not sustainable, but it is a nice little bonus for the American public, and that little bonus, of course, gave consumer spending a nice little kick, helped us move over that particular hump in terms of higher taxes. But even if you get rid of those 2 months, which includes, of course, that giant spike there, you'll see the March number that just came out not too long ago, in real terms, it's considerably higher than it was a year ago. Indeed, what's nice is you're starting to see some stability forming inside the broader U.S. economy. That stability is leading to somewhat tighter labor markets, which in turn is leading to, yes, higher wages as businesses are actually starting to compete a little bit, primarily for skilled workers. What it says, of course, is that incomes are rising, and most importantly, believe it or not, disposable income, that is to say income after taxes being paid, today is higher than it was 6 months ago, and that's one of the primary reasons why we've been able to sort of muscle through those tax increases and get a little bit of momentum in the underlying economy. Now, I do expect that consumer spending is going to slow down over the next couple of months as, shall we say, the big income hit from the last 2 months of last year sort of fades away. But nevertheless, consumer spending growth is going to continue through this year, and ultimately that's a good thing for the overall U.S. economy. We're also, of course, seeing improvements in fundamentals. That is to say, people's net worth has also improved. Indeed, on the left-hand side here, this is aggregate household net worth for the U.S. overall. It's basically all the value of all our assets together minus all our debt. And you can see how it's almost back to previous peak levels. Now, mind you, again, relatively good news is people are worth a little bit more. They feel more comfortable taking chances about starting a business, going out and buying a house, as the case may be. Now, much of this increase, of course, is not due to housing. The housing turnaround is just really starting to push forward. What's really happening here, of course, has to do everything with really two other parts of the other thing. A, the fact that people are getting rid of debt. B, of course, is the fact that the stock market has been doing very, very well. I'm going to come back to the stock market in just a second. One thing that's also helping consumers, I'll show you on the right-hand side. And what this is called the financial obligations ratio. It's an estimate by the Federal Reserve, which talks about the percent of household income being used to support current financial obligations. You might hear the sort of ongoing refrain that American consumers are being hampered by all this debt they're carrying around. Well, you know, you got to keep something in mind. It's not the quantity of debt that matters for consumers. It's the cost of that particular debt. And as Bruce already sort of remarked, today interest rates are incredibly low, at least relative to the experience of the last 40 years or so. Indeed, on the right-hand side there, you can see the financial obligation ratio has dropped to the lowest level basically we've ever seen. So yes, sure, households are carrying around a lot of debt, but their financial circumstances are well improved because so much of that debt is so cheap. And by the way, this is even accounting for the fact that a lot of folks haven't been able to refinance because they're underwater. In short, as home prices continue to rise and people get out of this negative equity position, they're going to be able to go out and refi and lower that number even more. What this means is, really at this point in time in the U.S. economy, there's an unprecedented opportunity for various sorts of financial institutions to start lending again to American consumers. And indeed, if you look at delinquencies on any kind of consumer debt, except for mortgage debt, you see record low levels of delinquency. The American public is in, right now, very, very good financial health, which I think is a surprise to a lot of folks. Now, how about that stock market? Is that the real deal? And the answer is absolutely. You know, I hear all the time, I've heard this on the radio probably a dozen times in the last month. How can that stock market be at a record high level? There's got to be something wrong here because the economy is lagging so far behind in terms of this recovery. Well, folks, the stock market doesn't reflect the broader economy. That's not what you're doing in the stock market. In the stock market, you're buying and selling corporate ownership of corporations. And so if you want to know what's happening in terms of the stock market, don't look at the broader economy. Look what's happening for corporations. And while it is true the overall economy is languishing behind, But the corporate part of our world is actually way ahead of the game. Indeed, on the right-hand side there, I'm showing you corporate profits. And corporate profits today are something on the order of 15 to 16% higher than they were pre-recession. Indeed, you might argue that corporate profits are the one part of the economy that's come back very quickly and is back to those sort of long-run trend lines. The other part of it, of course, has to do with interest rates. Yet again, corporations enjoying those very low interest rates, just like you and I are. You add that up, and you can argue on a long-term standpoint, the stock market is actually undervalued, not overvalued. There's more potential wealth there that could be seen, created, as that market continues to rise, as I expect it will. Now, mind you, expecting what the market's going to do is kind of a fool's game. As I've said on multiple occasions, we always have to keep in mind that the stock market is kind of the 13-year-old daughter of the U.S. economy. That is to say, for those of you with 13-year-old daughters, it is the ultimate drama queen. It overreacts to everything, and you know, who knows what could spark, what could spook it next. But at least from a long-run standpoint, this market is in wonderful shape right now, and I do believe it can continue to rise. Now, it's funny because we are really one of the most skittish states. Despite all these, I think, decent fundamentals, the fact that consumers are doing well, we are an enormously skittish economy right now. And I think about those sort of swoons and the overreaction in the stock market. Nothing could sort of show this better than what happened in March. Because the March retail sales number came down, and it was negative. It was down from February. Oh, the market dropped, and people started talking about a spring swoon again, and oh gee, now the tax cuts are really starting to hurt. On the left-hand side, folks, I'm showing you retail sales in March relative to February, and it is true they're lower, but look at March relative to January. Does anybody notice something there? It's considerably higher than it was in January. It's February, that's the weird number there, not March. Indeed, if you take a step back and look what's happening, retail sales, consumer spending overall, continue to rise right into the fourth quarter of this particular year. There's no swoon here by any stretch of the imagination. And we saw something very similar with employment. We had a wonderful February, but then, remember, March came in at 88,000. Oh, yet again, all sorts of panic in the street, the stock market started rumbling, and all the bears started coming out of their caves and wagging their fingers and saying, oh, see, we told you things were going to get bad again. Look, folks, very simple. 1 month does not a trend make, ever. When you think about things like employment, you think about even something like home prices, we have to remember these numbers are all based on surveys, they're measured with error, they're highly subject to revision, and ultimately they bounce all over the map. You can't look at one number and say this is a bad thing. And lo and behold, April came in, and not only was April better than March, but they revised March upward, and they even revised that incredibly strong February upward. Indeed, overall, the labor markets are clearly getting better. On the right-hand side, this is a better way of imagining things. I'm showing you overall monthly employment gains from March to September and September to, oh wait, was that, March to September and September to March. And no matter how you slice it, here's what's going on. We were adding 130,000 jobs in the middle of last year, and over the last 6 months or so, we're adding about 180,000 jobs a year to the overall economy. Things are improving, as simple as that. Productions, very similar sort of phenomenon. We saw a flattening out in production in the middle of last year, largely due to the slowdown in the world economy and some worries about what the fiscal cliff meant for the U.S. economy. But yet again, as those worries have lifted, the world economy seems to be steadying out. We're over the fiscal cliff hump, if you will, and industrial production yet again starting to rise. You're seeing the numbers start to rise in terms of actual physical production. Orders and shipments of durables are also starting to rise. All good news for the U.S. economy moving forward. You're looking at an engine with pretty much every cylinder ticking at this particular point in time. ISM survey is still positive, and businesses are still borrowing. Those C&I loans continue to rise on a solid basis. Now, where are all those jobs being created? And I probably should go back here before I give you that. I already told you the good news, but let me set it up a little better, okay? If you pick up any newspaper in California, there invariably will be an editorial near the back where you're going to have some person telling us how California is doomed. Bad taxes, bad regulations, businesses lined up on the border like Okies in reverse, desperately fleeing this hellhole we call California. The other day, when I was sitting in the traffic on the 405, I was desperately wishing that it was actually true and all these people were moving out. It is, it's ridiculous. these kind of overstated assertions are so blown out of proportion and candidly don't match reality. Indeed, right now, California, yes, lovely California, our fair state, is the 6th fastest growing labor force in the nation, added about 2% to our job labor force on a year-on-year basis, behind North Dakota, Utah, Texas, Colorado, and Idaho. Now, mind you, I want to put something in context here. What does North Dakota, Utah, Texas, and Colorado all have in common? Various sorts of energy products, that's exactly right. Idaho has potatoes. I don't know what's going on in Idaho. But California, of course, is of the big boys. We're the one non-energy producer up in the top of the list there. Our economy is moving forward in a very solid basis. We shouldn't be surprised about this. Look, is California a business-friendly state? Absolutely not. It's a disaster. I get that. You know, are we a high-tech state? Not really. What we are is an amazingly stupid tax state. That's a whole other issue for another day. But you know what? We've been this way for 20 years. And I will also tell you, as a person who's from upstate New York, this is paradise, folks. And it's a paradise that we're going to deal with one way or another. Yes, it's an expensive, difficult place to live. But me personally, I wouldn't live anywhere else. I love the state. I'm going to be here. And this idea that everybody's fleeing the state is absolutely ridiculous. Some businesses are leaving, that's true. You'll always pick up the occasional story of some anecdote about this business leaving for Texas. What you miss is the next pages of some business moving to California. And of course, all the venture capitalists creating new businesses. And our current businesses are expanding at this particular point in time. The reality is, California is going to be here. We have to screw it up a lot worse before it becomes as bad as everybody tries to paint that picture. Now, if you ask yourself, what kind of jobs and where are these jobs? Well, in terms of what kind of jobs, it's a broad mix. Accommodation, leisure, top, restaurants are busy, hotels are busy, professional scientific services, high-paid research jobs are up there. Construction's been bouncing forward very nicely as we're starting to see recovery in that part of the economy. Admin support moving forward as well. As for where the jobs are, well, it used to be, a year and a half ago, you'd say, well, it's the Bay Area, tech-heavy Bay Area. But this time around, it's across the board. Southern California, you can see Napa, Sonoma up there, and yes, even the Inland Empire is looking better all the time. Look at the numbers overall here out in the Inland Empire. Unemployment's been dropping very nicely, peaked close to 14%, today getting darn close to 10%. Very solid downward declines there. Overall non-farm payroll growth, pretty much on a solid upward trend. Not quite as wonderful as back in 05 and 06, but what you're seeing here, of course, is a recovery in the local labor force in terms of jobs created here. And of course, don't forget, a lot of folks in the Inland Empire take advantage of that job growth in LA and Orange County. It still is a big bedroom community for those Western economies. And in as much as you get out there on the 91 or the 60, you have a good sense of exactly how much of that's going on still even today. Again, all lifting the local economy. What kind of jobs are here? Well, again, trade, transport, utilities, top of the list. We know logistics has been doing well. Local government starting to add jobs. Retail, trade, education, health, leisure, hospitality. Good numbers across the board. Indeed, there's lots of sides that California is doing quite well. You see unemployment rate dropping faster here in the state than other places. Income growth a little bit faster. Taxable sales, overall consumer spending back to previous peak levels. Lots of good signs, things are moving forward. And of course, you can see it here. Indeed, Inland Empire taxable sales not only have gotten back to previous peak, but actually have surpassed the previous peak. A lot of good things happening out in this part of the world. And here's sort of a breakdown of what some of the different industries are. Business and in industry, right near the top there. Of course, this is taxable sales being paid on businesses investing in the local economy. Yet again, solid signs. Auto and transport up there, and of course, general consumer goods also growing at a fairly solid basis. Most important for me, and you should all have this in mind, is not only is 2012 a wonderful year for recovery, but it was probably one of the best years for wine ever in the state of California. And this is important, folks, because all this 12 vintage is going to start coming out over the next 2 years. Whatever you have in your wine refrigerator now, dump it, okay? Clear it out, start making room. Because not only was this a record year in terms of production, it was also a record year in terms of prices. So this is good stuff happening. Any grower would tell you the last year was one of the, pardon my language, it was a wet dream of grape growing years for winemakers. The stuff is going to be absolutely wonderful. And you better get to it quick, because on the right-hand side here, there's another side of the California economy's current, shall we say, rebound, and that is the fact that exports have come up very nicely. Indeed, particularly exports of wine. Yes, the rest of the world has finally figured out that that swill they make in France isn't nearly worth the price. Come to California where you can get a decent bottle. The airports are busy, of course, San Francisco, Oakland, Long Beach, Los Angeles. I am sad to report, of course, that would not account for the two smaller airports here, Burbank and, of course, Ontario, right next door to us. We all know about the ongoing issues between Loblaw and the City of Ontario having to do with ownership of the airport, what's happening out there. I don't have much good news to report on that particular front, but at least to say, you know, obviously there's some things that need to be done on that front, and we hope that things get resolved relatively quickly. As for visitors coming, you know, it's interesting. You think some mention was made about this, about the rest of the world. You think about where California is today, where the U.S. is today, the increase of visitors, the fact that there's a lot of tourism coming back. And what I'm showing you here is just kind of a year-on-year increase of where folks are coming from. Obviously, the two places where we get the most visitors from, our neighbors, Canada and Mexico. Never underestimate that. You know, you pick up the paper and you're always hearing about, you know, China, you're hearing about Europe. Always keep in mind, our two biggest trading partners, our two biggest countries that we interact with economically the most, it's not China, it's not Europe, it's Canada and Mexico. And of course, both those economies moving forward at a fairly solid basis, visitors up there. Visitors from Japan bounced back very nicely. A lot of visitors from Central America. But probably most interesting here, and the reason I put this slide up here, is look at all the folks coming from the People's Republic of China. Up 40% in 2012 over 2011. They have money, they have passports, and they want to get out of China. And a lot of that money's coming here. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but you want to look at some of these EB-5 programs that are going on. EB-5, by the way, it's a visa process by which if you come over here and put money into a specially designated zone, and that investment of yours will create 10 or more jobs. Well, for every 10 jobs you create, you get a green card. And this has not been lost. A lot of those folks in People's Republic of China are coming here on business, and yes, they're coming to California, pouring a lot of money across the economy. Yet again, a good sign of hopeful things for our economy. Travel and tourism here, as already noted, Ontario is still not doing very well. Continued downward movement in terms of overall passengers. However, put that to one side, hotels in the area are actually doing well. Occupancy rates almost back to previous peak levels, and rates also on the rise at this particular point in time. Things are doing well on that particular front. So with all that good news, I do need to just, do point out that indeed, while things are quite positive, there are some negatives out there. And one of the negatives, of course, is the fact that the U.S. economy is way behind from a long-run standpoint. On the left side here, I'm showing you a picture. That yellow line is kind of a hypothetical pace, if you will, or trend of economic output. Had our economy continued to grow at about 2.5% past the previous peak. The white line is what's actually happened. You can see we had the big recession, we hit bottom, we've been growing at basically a normal pace since then. And this is unusual. If you go back to the last two big recessions in the U.S. economy in the middle part of the 1970s, early part of the 1980s, completely different picture. Our economy hit bottom, and after those recessions too came to an end, our economy grew at 6% per year, quickly launching us back up to that long-run trend line. We didn't have that recovery this time. It was a very odd experience for the U.S. economy. And I think goes a long ways towards explaining why our unemployment rate's still high, why, of course, we continue to have this national sense of insecurity. Every time we walk around the corner, we see our own shadow, we freak out, the stock market swoons, etc., etc. What happened? Well, if you think back to this last election, you think about the debates between Romney and Obama. When you strip away all the nonsense, what it really boiled down to was really a discussion of what was wrong in the U.S. economy. And I can say in complete bipartisan spirit that they are both completely wrong, okay? Absolutely. What were the two stories? Well, one side, of course, is all about taxes. We've heard on and on and on about how taxes are such a job killer. And boy, if we could just lower taxes, everything will be fine. Well, look, you want to talk about smaller governments, more efficient governments, more responsive governments, I'm with you. I will sit down, I will debate, I will probably agree with the Republicans on most of those particular issues. Agree, agree, agree. And then we get to a point, we get to a line, and that line is when we start talking about we need a government that's smaller, more efficient, more responsive, more accountable, to we need to lower taxes because it helps growth. Well, we just went from something I agree with to complete fantasy land. I'm a data guy. I look at data all the time. And I can tell you this firsthand. You look across states, you look over time, the relationship between taxes and growth is non-existent. It's almost impossible to see in the data. It's as simple as that. Now again, I don't like paying taxes. And I really don't like paying taxes when I think it's being wasted on overstuffed pension benefits. I get that. But that's different than saying that the cure to all our evils is to cut taxes more. Look, folks, taxes peaked in 2000, at the end of the roaring 90s. They peaked. And then we had two big tax cuts under Bush and then under Obama for the stimulus. Have we had a decade of wonderful growth even though tax rates got to the lowest levels ever? No! Not even close. It's been horrible. Texas versus California. Texas, no personal income tax. California, the highest marginal tax rate on wealthy people in the nation. Is one of these states an economic success story and the other one a complete disaster? Well, no is the answer to that. Indeed, if you look at from 1997 up to 2007, before the recession began, there's one thing that Texas and California had in common. Both states were economic success stories. Both states grew faster than the U.S. in population growth, income growth, employment growth, you name it. Some ways Texas was better than us, and other ways we were better than Texas. But in no way, shape, or form was one state a success story and one state a failure. That is fantasy land. And by the way, cutting taxes further wouldn't have helped anybody. It was not the solution to our problems. In fact, quite the opposite. You know, most of the stimulus plan we've had was actually handed out to folks in the form of those particular tax cuts there. And the only thing that did was stimulate demand for imports from China. In short, let me tell you our fiscal policy for fixing our recession. We're going to borrow hundreds of billions of dollars from the Chinese to stimulate the Chinese economy. Well done. Getting ahead of myself here. So forget the tax thing. It's nonsense. On the other side of the equation, it's the poor consumer and the poor homeowner. Oh my God, it's so terrible out there. These poor people have way too much debt and they're getting foreclosed on. And as a result of that, they can't go out and spend. And that's a terrible thing for our economy. Well, right off the bat, it's a completely ridiculous proposition. On the right-hand side there, I'm showing you consumer spending as a percent of GDP. It's the highest it's ever been right now, folks. We're not under-consuming. In fact, from a long-run standpoint, I would argue our nation is still under-saving. That is a long-term policy issue our nation needs to face. And as for foreclosures, give me a break. I have yet to see anybody provide me any evidence of any substantial nature that shows that somehow or other foreclosures are bad for the macroeconomy. I get it. On a personal level, it can be heartbreaking. And I'm not talking about the guy who bought 9 homes with subprime mortgages, listing himself as the owner-occupant of every single one in a massive case of fraud. I'm talking about the family, the lower middle-class family that got swept up in the nonsense, that got a loan they shouldn't have gotten, put their family there, and were so happy to have a backyard, and they lost it because they made a really bad error. But keep something in mind, folks. A foreclosure is called progress. You know, let me explain something to you. 200 years ago, in England, if they had foreclosed on you, they throw you in jail. In Spain, you can be foreclosed on, but the debt doesn't go away. It follows you around for life. Here in the U.S., you get foreclosed on, it's done. You lose the house, but the debt goes away. You get a clean slate. You start over again. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. Simple as that, and I'm tired of this nonsense, a homeowner bill of rights. Really? Give me a break. What a bunch of populist nonsense. Foreclosures clear the market. Clearing the market helps it recover, period. And by the way, we had a very effective foreclosure system. I'm not saying the banks didn't do some raunchy things here and there, but keep something in mind. Yeah, a lot of the paperwork wasn't complete, but nobody showed me a number that would suggest that anything less than 99.99% of people who were foreclosed on because they didn't pay their mortgage. All right, as simple as that. So what is wrong with our economy? Well, our economy, of course, is being hit by two things. A, we're still running a massive trade deficit. And B, construction has languished tremendously. These are the answers, folks. If you got construction back up to normal levels, if you close the trade deficit, well, all said and done, we'd be back on a normal path. And that's what you got to watch, trade and construction. Let's talk about trade. Trade had bounced back very nicely. The trade deficit has started to close, but unfortunately, things stalled out at the end of last year. And it's not because the U.S. isn't competitive. And gee, we've been competitive forever, and now with the dollar 20% lower than where it was 6 years ago, whereas competitive has been a long time. The problem, of course, is the rest of the world economy, where things stalled out, primarily around, of course, the issues in Europe. So what's happening out there? Well, Europe is a mess, there's no doubt about it, but at least the crisis part of the European situation is removed. In the middle of last year, finally the European Central Bank stood up and did what they were supposed to do and say, look, we understand there are problems, we understand there are worries about default in Spain or Italy. In the short run, we will do our job and backstop the lending, borrowing process for these governments. If no one else will buy their bonds, we will. They haven't purchased one bond yet, but just by saying they would, the crisis has been eliminated. Not the chronic problems. Spain and Italy are still chronically overregulated and uncompetitive. These two economies still have big debt issues, particularly Spain when it comes to their housing market to deal with. But ultimately, the crisis is out of the situation, and now it's just a chronic situation of fixing these problems. And the good news there, of course, things seem to be moving forward. Japan, which has been a disaster, also starting to move forward with new monetary policies that push the yen down and are making them more competitive yet again. As for China, well, yet again, we heard this kind of big panic about China slowing down. It is true that Chinese manufacturing growth slowed from 15% year-on-year to 10% year-on-year. Oh, gee. But their economy is still moving forward. Retail sales are still growing. It all said and done. Their housing market is still doing well. They're still a force of power. And keep something in mind. They've actually been, in a lot of ways, China does some pretty raunchy things. But at least from a global trade perspective, since the recession came to an end, exports of goods into China increased by 45%. Exports of Chinese goods to the rest of the world increased by 30%. We're almost at a trade balance at this particular point in time. They're playing nice, and yes, they're helping our economy move forward because they're buying a lot of our stuff, particularly in the agriculture area, and again, investing in our economy. All good news there. Also good news, of course, that we are in the midst, in the beginning of a massive energy boom, not to be forgotten in the U.S. And again, think about Texas, you think about North Dakota. Those places are being pushed forward by the fact that we're seeing massive increases in energy production, both for gas and oil, up 25% over the next 5 years, and that will continue. Ultimately, we do have to figure out how to get rid of fossil fuels. I'm not arguing that for a second. Indeed, as any good economist, I would argue the biggest problem with environmentalism is environmentalists. But to produce this here in the short run releases our dependence on foreign fuel, particularly from the Middle East, and of course it's more environmentally friendly to produce it here and use it here than it is to haul it across the globe in these big, dirty, ugly ships. So with that in mind, ultimately a relatively good thing, and of course it reduces demand for imports, yet again, good for the U.S. economy. As for the construction side, as Bruce sort of alluded to, it's little to be argued at the fact that the housing market is indeed moving forward very nicely. Sales running about 4.3 million units per year nationally. Prices, I don't care what you look at, Case-Shiller, CoreLogic, median prices, they all show the same thing. Prices are rising. The only debate is it single digits or double digits? That's about the only debate we're having at this particular point in time. The answer, of course, why? Inventories, we know that. Tight markets cause bidding wars cause prices to rise. And candidly, this was predictable. On the left-hand side here, this is month supply. 2 years ago, there were 9 months supply in the national market. That was down, 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 down. You know, I remember 8, 9 months ago, reporters were asking me when the market's going to hit bottom. Now, of course, they're all shocked by the fact that prices are going up. But prices are always a lagging indicator. Inventories lead. Inventory should always be the thing you primarily keep your eye on, because that's going to drive prices 7, 8, 9 months down the road. In 2006, I was calling the end. I absolutely stood in front of groups of people and said, that's it, folks, party over. Not because prices started to drop. Prices started dropping in 07. But inventory started climbing in the late 05, and by the middle of 06, they're gone way up. And that's a clear sign that the party's over. Always keep an eye on inventories. And of course, that's true here in California. Prices are rising, inventory is incredibly tight. 2 months supply in California at this particular point in time. Amazingly tight markets, particularly in some of those coastal markets. Not a surprise prices are going to go up, and they're probably going to continue to go up for a while. On the left-hand side here are some of these Case-Shiller numbers. You can see acceleration across the board: Las Vegas, San Francisco, Phoenix, San Diego. On the right-hand side, those are median prices for Inland Empire. And yes, have they exploded? Absolutely. Now bear something in mind. These are median prices. They, of course, move around because of the quality of the mix. One of the important things to remember is even though on a year-on-year basis, median prices out here are up like 25%, that's only because a year ago there were a lot more foreclosures, and we all know what a foreclosure sale looks like. Today, a lot more normal transactions, and so you're being a big quality mix. But nevertheless, even if you account for that, you can say with pretty much certainty that a quality-adjusted increase in prices in the Empire will be at least 10% on a year-on-year basis. Very solid numbers across the board. Now, as already noted, despite the fact that prices are up across the board, home sales is still relatively flat. Yes, not a lot of inventory. That means there can't be a lot of sales, but there's a lot of demand out there for the existing products. A lot of it has to do with the fact, of course, that the investors are moving in a very large way, but it also has a lot to do with a lot of supply is simply constrained because so many of those folks are underwater. As for shadow inventory, you've heard a lot about this idea of shadow inventory over the course of the last couple of years. Candidly, I think it's complete hogwash. First of all, there is no such thing as a shadow inventory because the numbers that you have to see are out there for you to see. You want to see overall REO units? Here's the data right here, folks. And this is numbers counted from various things. This is private label security, Fannie, Freddie, and FDIC insured institutions. And as you can see, it peaked at about 600,000 units a couple of years ago. This is through Q3. I couldn't find my Q4 graph here, but Q4 is running about 300,000. That's half. The banks are trying to get rid of the stuff. They don't want it on their books, and as soon as they can sell it, they are. As for the inventory of stuff that's not in foreclosure, but let's say is in the foreclosure process or stage delinquent, yet again, that's way down. Still high from a long run standpoint. You know, this peaked at about 11% of all mortgages. Today, we're running about 8% at this particular point in time. But bear something in mind, it's largely high because of units that are in foreclosure, and that number is so high for 3 reasons. And those 3 reasons are Florida, New Jersey. Judicial states, in Florida right now, it takes you 3 years to foreclose on a house. 3 years! Hell, I wouldn't pay my mortgage either. That's an easy decision, right? So, but other places like California, for example, which had this enormous supply, well, we've ground through most of it. Indeed, number of units in foreclosure in California right now, and this is not even adjusted for fourth quarter numbers, which just came out. I think the fourth quarter numbers have about 2.5% of mortgages in the state are in the foreclosure process, way down from the 7% we had hit even 2 years ago. There's really not much inventory there, and of course, what you're seeing is a big movement by the banks to get out of these foreclosure situations, do the short sales when they can. Particularly in a market like Vegas, somewhat here in California, you're seeing foreclosure sales going down, and you're seeing short sales go way up at this particular point in time. Local foreclosures, you can see the picture here, shows it very nicely. Overall defaults have peaked. Notice the default peaked at 25,000 per quarter, now down to just about 5,000. Still kind of high from a long run standpoint, but man, it's amazing how this has turned around. Yes, still lots of units in that pipeline, but the pipeline is slowly but surely draining out, folks. Simple as that. Now, as already noted, and I think Bruce did a great way of characterizing this, this is an odd recovery in as much as it's a narrow recovery. We have not very high sales, but very tight inventories. And again, a lot of this has to do with the fact that a lot of houses simply aren't in the market. Some of that are REO, some of that, of course, is in that pipeline, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that there are all these people who are underwater. But keep something in mind. If national prices go up by 10% over the course of next year, which, by the way, is not unreasonable, that pulls over 1 million folks in the nation out of being in an underwater position. Another 10%, another 1 million people. Maybe even more, 2.5 million people. What this means, of course, is as prices continue to rise, you're going to see more units getting into the action. More units are going to start going above water. And this means more stuff being put on the market, it means more refinancing going on, and ultimately, that means the market will slowly start to pick up momentum. Now, the other thing that happens, of course, is it's amazing. The same report, I told you just a few minutes ago, I said, there's reporters calling me and going, you know, 8 months ago, 9 months ago, when's the market going to hit bottom? They're now calling me today going, is this a bubble? Really? What is a bubble, folks? A bubble is a period of time when prices are doing something the fundamentals say they should not be doing. So what you need to do is think about the fundamentals. And the fundamentals of the housing market are very simple. It's home prices relative to incomes or home prices relative to rents. And in either case, I would argue we are in a bubble. And we've been in a bubble in the last couple of years. But that's a negative bubble. Because if you look at home prices relative to incomes, accounting for these interest rates, they're ridiculously low. If you look at home prices accounting for interest rates relative to rents, they're ridiculously low. Why are all these investors jumping in, buying homes, and renting them out? I'll tell you why. The arbitrage is obvious. Look on the right-hand side. That's whole cost of rents in the U.S. economy. If I showed you that graph for California, it would be even more astonishing how cheap houses have become relative to renting. It's as simple as that. That's why the investors are jumping in. And by the way, there's a known cure there. When the investors get cold is when that arbitrage goes away. But what's going to get that arbitrage to go away is for demand to move away from multifamily rental units, I'm sorry, not multifamily, but rental units, back into owner-occupied units. So in a sense, there's a built-in equilibrium mechanism. The investors go away because everybody else is moving in. And what you're really waiting for, from your perspective, because the investors aren't using you, is you're waiting for that big switch. You're waiting for that big turn in that particular market. Now, what does this all mean for the economy? Well, it means all sorts of wonderful things. One of the things it means, of course, is yes, Oakley starting to build again. And that's good for the economy because a lot of people borrow against it. Indeed, on the right-hand side here, we do some estimates. In the fourth quarter of last year, for the first time since 2006, there's been positive equity withdrawal from homes. People are starting to pull cash out. On a long-run standpoint, that should be running about 2% per year. If it's 10% a year, that's a problem. Being negative 2% per year, that's also a big problem. Again, why can consumers move forward? Part of it is they can finally start using their home again as an equity withdrawal mechanism. Great news for the economy. And of course, there's also the basics of construction. More housing, adding to growth. And this is a big deal. We've seen 1 million units just recently, way above the 600,000 we've been stuck at for the longest time. And to put this in context, if you have just a normal pace of construction, but we grow over the next 2 years to a normal pace of construction, all by itself, that could add 2/3% to growth every single quarter. That's bigger than the sequestration net, folks. Simple as that. Housing, construction of housing, offsets so much of that stuff. Now, one of the weird things that's happening here, of course, is the fact that most of the new construction is actually in the multifamily side. Not most in terms of a majority. What I mean is from a bounce back standpoint, multifamily is back to normal levels. It's single family that's languishing way behind. Indeed, there's been a very big increase in the multifamily starts. The reason for that, of course, is, again, those rental markets are hot, and that's where the guys are building. But, again, there's going to be a shift back at some point in time. On the left-hand side, keep this chart in mind. At the peak, we had 76 million homeowners in the U.S. That's dropped to 75 million. Over the same period of time, we had a number of people who were renting go from 35 million to 34 million up to 40 million. 6 million new renters, 1 million fewer owner-occupiers. And we know why. Fear in the market, lots of foreclosures, bad credit scores, the inability to get loans. You add it all up. But this is going to shift. You're already starting to feel it. First of all, prices are going up. More confidence. People's balance sheets, the credit scores are getting fixed. That's good news. And that means, yes, there is growing demand for people to go out and buy homes. Probably the biggest thing that's just holding that back is the fact that it's very hard to get a mortgage right now. And why is it hard to get a mortgage? Because the banks aren't allowed to make the damn thing. It's as simple as that. It's unbelievable. I work with the bank fairly closely, and they want to start making mortgage loans. It makes sense. If you're a bank and you could ever make a mortgage loan, this is the time to do it. This is the safest market because prices are going to continue to go up for at least a couple of years. You don't want to lend when prices are about to go down, but you sure as hell want to lend when at the beginning of a big price increase. They can't do it. Regulators said no. We want to do HELOCs. Not a chance. And this isn't a big surprise. Over the last 4 years, our whole national culture has been wrapped around this idea that banks are evil. Now, mind you, this is kind of preposterous. Were some financial institutions completely negligent? Sure. But they don't exist anymore. Or they're too big to fail, one or the other. It's the investment banks and the subprime lenders. Those are the bad guys, folks. Subprime guys are gone. They bankrupted and walked away with the gazillions. That was a nice business model. Yeah. I mean, yeah, but they have to punish someone, so you can't throw Angelo Mazzillo in bank. He lawyered up. You can't put Dick Fold in jail. He's all lawyered up. So what do? The regulators go after the banks. I don't know how true this is, but this is a story I was told one time. A regulator walked into a bank, and he basically said to the bank manager, he said, look, I can make this real simple. Just tell me all the bad stuff you've been doing, and it'll save us a lot of time and expenses to have my auditors find it themselves. Really? Now, there have been some talks about this. I mean, there's been this basic acknowledgement that they're not loosening standards, even though there's this huge demand, which is the pictures I'm showing you here. Obama talked about it, Yellen talked about it, Bernanke talked about it. But the guys at the top have people working for them, 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 who manage the auditors. There's a big bureaucracy between there. Talking at the top doesn't change the work at the bottom. You got to get to the bottom, and that process hasn't begun. Hopefully it will, because when it becomes easier to get credit, that's going to turn this market on a dime. And boy, if there's anything you should be screaming at DC about, it's get your act together. Get those mortgage markets working. There's no reason in the world the banks shouldn't be lending in this market at this point in time if you let them. Simple as that. Now, how does our state stand up in all this? Well, we have started to build some, but not nearly enough. And indeed, you know, our state is probably best qualified to be lending money into, because while it is true prices are high, also keep something else in mind. We don't have enough housing. From a supply standpoint, we've been undersupplied for 15 years. We have the lowest housing vacancy rate, and even though we have 15% of the country's population, we have approximately 7% overall building permits. We have the least affordable housing in the United States, with the exception of Hawaii, which is hard to count because that's all skewed because of the big tourism market. Yes, it's nice when prices are going up, but bear in mind, if you want to hold this up against Texas and say, what's the biggest problem? It's not taxes, it's not regulations, it's the fact that the cost of housing here is so ridiculously high. Let me put this in perspective. Texas, small government Texas, has more public employees than we do as a percent of their workforce. They have more police, they have more teachers. How can you be small budget and have more public employees? They pay their average employee 30% less. How do you get away with that? The cost of housing in Texas is half the cost of housing in the U.S. The most expensive market in Texas is Austin, Texas, where the median price of a house is, hold your breath, this is top of the top, this is the Beverly Hills of Texas, $200,000. I'll take two. We need to build more. Now, aren't we building more? I'll tell you why. CEQA. The most ridiculous, disastrous regulation next to Prop 13. A separate issue. We have a ridiculous system here in California whereby we basically constrain the construction of new homes. And that is a terrible problem for the long run state. In the short run, be happy prices are going up. But understand that every time those prices tick up 5–10%, you're going to cause a few more businesses to indeed get up and leave the state, because they can't pay their folks enough to go out and buy a house. And ultimately, that's what a lot, particularly the mid-skill workers, want to do. So we end up with this barbell economy where the ultra-rich and high-skilled folks and the very low end up in the state, but everybody in that middle moves out because they can't afford a house here. And that's not a good way to run an economy. We need to fix this. We need to fix CEQA. Scream at the guys in Sacramento about that. As for the Inland Empire, things are bouncing forward. Interestingly enough, mostly on the single-family side, bucking the trend out here. But nevertheless, things are starting to move forward, relatively good size there. As for other construction activity, things are still relatively flat. Not a lot of good news in the non-residential market, not a surprise. With the exception of warehouse space, offices, and of course retail still dealing with relatively high vacancy rates. You know, some of this is because of the overall weak recovery. A lot of it has to do with the fact that there are long-run secular trends in demand for these things. Who here in the audience is an Amazon.com Prime member? Raise your hand. Be proud, be Prime. No, for those who aren't, you need to do it now. Let me explain. $70 free shipping for the entire year. Remember how mom and dad used to have a shopping list if you were out of something? You'd like write it down and mom would buy it next time she went to the market. I don't do that anymore. I have my smartphone. I go up, oh, I need ketchup. I go on Amazon Prime and I order ketchup. One day later, there's ketchup at my doorstep. It's a wonderful system. I thoroughly recommend it. But what that means, of course, is a little less demand for retail space. There's also less demand for office space because a lot more people can work remotely. Mind you, it doesn't mean it's the end for office and or retail. Retail office will come back, but it's going to be the destination stuff, the core stuff. It's going to be the central city stuff that's doing well. Suburban stuff's going to languish just a bit. Keep that in mind. The biggest source of uncertainty in our economy today, you know, I used this cartoon for 3 years. They just keep proving it's so right, I can't stop using it. You know, a few years ago, there was one of our mini panics. Some smart cartoonist asked this question: can the U.S. economy survive a double dip? Better question is, can the U.S. economy survive 535 of them? As I've already talked about, we manufactured a crisis in the U.S. that, of course, was the fiscal cliff. Now, mind you, I don't approve of the deficits we're running in D.C. I think they're largely a waste of money. However, I also know something else. Now, once you embark down this particular path, you need to use slow methods of getting back to some sort of normal equilibrium. When it comes to any kind of government policy, the basic rule is this: the economy is a piece of plastic. You bend it slow, take whatever shape you want. You bend it rapidly, you'll snap it. Simple as that. What you're dealing with here, of course, is a situation where we need to close a deficit. We all know that. And we need to do so in a gradual way. And yes, part of that means raising incomes, taxes again. It also means, of course, cutting some spending. You need to find a nice middle ground. What do? We put a bunch of guys in D.C. who couldn't agree on anything. The net result of which is we ended up with this kind of crazy fiscal cliff. It would have caused a recession, not because higher taxes and lower spending was necessarily a bad thing for an economy. It's because it was going to happen so rapidly. It was the speed, not the direction, that was a problem here. Now, mind you, most of that got pushed to one side when they came up at the last minute with a tax compromise. The $400 billion in taxes went down to about $120 billion increase in taxes, and as I already showed you, we muscled through that. But there's still more issues to deal with out there, of course. We're already talking about the so-called debt ceiling limit. And yet again, to prevent that from going up, yes, it will create a very rapid transmission, a very sharp hit to the U.S. economy, and yes, that could be potentially recession-causing. We don't need this. We need compromise that gently moves us back to where we need to be, which is a sustainable, balanced budget sort of position, and they don't seem to be doing that, and it makes me crazy. The job of Congress is to get business done, not to draw ideological lines in the sand and prevent any kind of compromise from happening, thus leading us from crisis to crisis to crisis. Can't do that. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody on this front. They're just as irrational on both sides of the aisle. It's very frustrating. As for local government, well, things are looking a little better. It is true revenues are up, but at the same time, a lot of those federal supports are pulling back. Never a good thing, all said and done. Here in California, we fixed things, which is relatively good. That's because of Prop 30. And Prop 30, of course, again, raised a lot of hackles. Now, right off the bat, Prop 30 actually, believe it or not, in the short run, is a good thing. But yes, it is true it would be higher taxes, but at the same time, that money is going to go into various sorts of state support mechanisms. If you sit down to an impact study, at least in the very short run, it actually is going to lead to better economic outputs. Greater economic output in states, actually going to help growth in the very short run. And Prop 30 doesn't bother me because people say, well, we're a high-tax state, now we're a higher-tax state. As I already said, we're not a high-tax state, we're a stupid tax state. It's a different sort of issue. Indeed, if you look at all taxes and fees we pay in the state of California percent of income, we're like number 18. We just use very unfriendly taxes. By the way, do you know what the highest tax state in the U.S. is? I love this little tidbit. No, Alaska. Sarah Palin's hometown. She won't tell you this, of course. She talks about how Alaska is this paragon of business friendliness. Not really. You gotta remember, actually Alaska is the biggest welfare state in the nation because they get a huge amount of money from extraction fees on oil. And all that money comes in, comes up a bunch of checks, and they give those checks. If you live in Alaska, you will get an oil check annually based on those fees. It is the biggest welfare state we have going. We don't have an extraction tax on oil, by the way, in the state of California. We're the third largest producer of oil in the nation. Because rich people are going to leave. I already told you, folks, California's been expensive. We've been expensive for a long time. A little bit of higher income tax is going to make you leave. You probably would have left already because you know what? You can buy a much larger mansion for much less money in Texas than you can here. Again, it's not the straw that broke the camel back. Now, I'm not all happy about it because A, you're talking about having us a surplus in a couple of years. That scares me to death. Last time we had a surplus was under the Gray Davis administration, and we're still trying to dig out from underneath the mess he created. Surpluses in Sacramento lead to all sorts of bad things happening, particularly when there's a supermajority. So that doesn't make me happy. And of course, we need real reform, not more higher income taxes, because we're more reliant on an unreliable source of income. You know, surplus today going to be a deficit in 3 years. Personal income tax is bounced all over the map. And of course, we got all this without any real expenditure reform. You know, it was a sad thing. The Republicans in the state are such an important counterbalancing force. But instead of being reasonable and coming up with compromises and dealing with it, they drew this line in the sand on taxes. They lost the battle, they lost the war. And it was a pointless battle in the first place. It always should have been, we'll give you the revenue, you give us the reform. We'll give you higher taxes, we want pension reform. You give us higher tax, we'll give you higher taxes, we want secret reform. And that never happened, and now I don't know where we're going to head. And of course, we still haven't dealt with the unfunded liabilities. And those are the scary ones, folks, at the nation and the local level. It's the pension, Social Security, Medicare. That's where the real fear is. And we haven't even come close to dealing with these particular issues at this particular point in time. As for interest rates, well, they are low. That was one of the big questions is where are they going to go to? You know, if interest rates get back up to 7%, you can forget about this reverse bubble. Luckily, I don't think that's going to happen. I'll tell you why. There's four things that drive interest rates: supply and demand for capital, fear of inflation, fear of recession, and fear of default. Forget the fear of default. As for supply and demand, there's a lot more supply of capital out there in demand because the Asian economy is safe and they're pouring capital in the world economy. That means low interest rates are low. The other two parts are fear of inflation and fear of recession. Really, it's been fear of recession, that is to say a double dip, that's been keeping these interest rates so low. You look at a lot of different types of indicators and they all point to the same thing. Our U.S. economy acts like we're in a recession. We think, we feel like it. You see all the numbers. People have way too much money in bonds because they're afraid of everything else. The stock market's undervalued. The 10-year, 20-year yield is so much higher than the 5-year yield. Capex ratios, everything says it's too fearful. The good news is, for the economy, as this fear goes away over the course of this year, then that's going to come to an end. It's also going to mean that interest rates are going to start coming up slowly, but we're not talking a lot, maybe 50 bips. In fact, this morning, I don't know if you saw this, but the last couple of days, there's been a little jump in that 10-year treasury. Still well below 2%. But I can see in the next year and a half, treasuries getting a little above 2%, maybe even 2.2, 2.3%. And yes, that means the mortgage rates will start to come up as much. But again, we're talking up to 4%, maybe 4.5% at the outside. And that's certainly not going to kill what's going on in the real estate market today. As for inflation, no risk of that. Not because quantitative easing hasn't pumped a lot of money into the economy, but it's because most of that money is sitting in the banks form excess reserves. Indeed, you don't have to worry about inflation until the banks start to lend in a big way. And even then, there's probably a 2-year fuse on that particular inflation bond. And Bernanke, the company, has lots of time to get ahead of that curve and prevent it from happening. So don't worry about buying gold. Don't think we're going to have hyperinflation tomorrow. This is not the cards at this particular point in time. Could, but making a bet on inflation is making a bet that the Federal Reserve is simply not going to do anything. And candidly, I think they've been pretty reasonable and rational up to now. I find it hard to predict that they will suddenly become irrational and flamingly stupid in the next 2 years. So with that in mind, I don't think inflation is a big risk. So interest rates up, but not all that much. So add it up, I'm optimistic about the economy. I'm optimistic about California. I think a little less than 3% growth this year, despite all those problems with sequestration. If they do come up with some horrible thing in Washington, D.C., you could derail this, there's no doubt about it. Big themes for the year, a little bit of stall in consumer spending, but consumers are going to start moving forward. Housing recovery is going to accelerate. Watch out, I think, in the medium term. I think we may be overbuilding our multifamily stock. Commercial will continue its slow. Exports, business spending moving forward. Watch for some modest increases in interest rates. California is in the growth mix, folks, and I don't expect that to change at all. The state has a tremendous amount of things going for it, and yes, some businesses are going to leave, because candidly, housing is way too expensive. On the other hand, there's lots of businesses forming here at the same time. Ultimately, the state will be on the forefront of growth. We still have to worry about Europe. They could melt down again. We still have to worry about D.C. They could melt down again. But short of these political risks in the economy, I'm about as positive as I've been about the Southern California and U.S. economy as I've been in a very long time. And if you add it up, that's good news. Good news for you. It's good news for me. And, you know, you can take off that crisis hat and start thinking long term. Start planning ahead again. Whew. Thank you very much.
As I mentioned before, I attend a lot of these conferences myself, and I really attend them for one reason and one reason only. Somewhere along the line of my business career, I was told that you better start making a business plan and trying to project where your market's going to go, or you're going to be in big trouble. So my whole reason to follow these guys around and listen to them, because I respect them and their numbers are believable and accurate and provable, is because I'm using, by the way, if you guys are going to chat in the back, go up, chat outside. Hey Brian, get a hold of the back of the room for me if you could. By the way, everybody, hey, can I get your attention? If you want to talk, that's fine, go outside. I would suggest you have a seat and listen to what these guys have to say though, okay? Thank you. So at any rate, oh yeah, bring the lights up. Oh, thank God. Good thing the data was so good. I mean, I could listen to these guys for 8 hours and not get bored of this stuff. At any rate, one of the main reasons that I've been following Bruce and Christopher around is basically for business planning. Most everybody in this room, in case we haven't already identified that, are in one form or other in the real estate industry. You know, we're not in hotels, we're not travel agents. We're either realtors, which is the majority of us, investors, which is a good chunk of us, or in some relation in the real estate field, escrow, title, mortgage, whatever it happens to be. So with all that in mind, hit the clicker. What do we do with that clicker? Did that disappear?
You know what's on
It
the
disappeared?
podium?
You know, Brian probably took it. Click that next thing. So there we go. I just got a couple of little things in here that are going to help me. You guys aren't even going to be able to see these charts, so don't get too hung up on what's on the screen. But what's on the screen right now is a copy of a chart that Chris and Bruce have already put up, but it's a little more specific to the Inland Empire. This is CRMLS, our local MLS, Inland Empire, and it is a median price chart. Median price in the Inland Empire, based upon the data I'm looking at, bottomed in February of 2012. And it's pretty much gone upwards since then. Last month certainly was no exception. If you do the math on those values, it's about a 30+% increase in median price in about 14 months.
Well, again, most of that, though, you got to keep in mind is it's an illusion driven by big shifts in the type of stuff that's selling. Remember, 14, 15 months ago,
Yep.
lots of foreclosures today. That doesn't mean your house went up by 30% value.
Right.
It's just the median price.
And again, it's median, and we certainly, these guys can explain whether median's an accurate value to look at. Having said that, that's real for a lot of people. I mean, if you're looking at certain neighborhoods that we're selling, that's a real, that's certainly real for the stuff I'm seeing. I'm certainly seeing it all day long. This next chart is, again, inventory. I'm not surprised, but I guess in some ways I'm really surprised at the amount of time both of you started spending talking about inventory, because I've been screaming about inventory levels, frankly, since 2008. When the first moratorium came in, you could literally see the available units drop immediately. It doesn't seem as though that became a popular topic in our real estate community until maybe a year or so ago. But if you look at that, I mean, that's a 2-year chart of inventory. The red bar is available inventory in the Inland Empire, or again, CRMLS, which is our area. So it appears to me, I'm going to get to a question here in a minute, and probably 50% of the text I got had to do with inventory. And before I ask the question, Stephen's an agent in my office, sent a text which basically said, and I'm curious how many in the audience, but either by applause or a show of hands, tell me if you agree with this. Stephen's text, and I'll read it verbatim because it was, I think it sums up how many of you, I think, will feel, is, Stephen, you in the room? Where did it go? Anyway, I'll paraphrase. The economy is good, but we're screwed. And the word screwed is, he's talking from a real estate agent perspective. There's two pieces of the equation that we need to make a living in this business. Basically, prices of the house. We all agree prices have gone up a little bit, the commissions coming in are a little higher, company dollars are a little higher, but the inventory levels are so low. You've got offices and agents out there starving. And right now, raise your hand if you could sell twice as many houses if you have the inventory. Keep them up. Keep them up if you could sell 3 times as many houses if you have the inventory. I'll stop there because I think if we could go 4 or 5. So any magical wisdom, you know, Bruce, you had said something about just because prices are going up doesn't necessarily mean that inventory would fall. I've been saying now for 6 months, as prices would come up, some people that maybe were underwater or some people maybe were on the fence would say, hey, the house is now worth X as opposed to Y. Maybe now's a good time to maybe unload where we're at and move on. Any predictions on where inventory is going to go in the next foreseeable future? Let's start with Bruce.
You know, you definitely have a point that there's going to be somebody come off the sidelines with equity, but are they going to be willing to go from owner to renter?
No, but hang on, inventory is a function of both buying and selling.
Well,
So,
they're going to
I mean,
become a buyer as well.
I mean, these guys don't care if they sell a smaller house and buy a bigger one because they're making money on both ends.
Right, but what he's asking is the inventory level going to go up because they came off the sideline? No, another buyer will emerge from the transaction. The reason for me the inventory didn't become an issue was a year ago you had what would be your starting point for most price increase in something under 6 months. You've never gone from 6 months to 2 months in this time frame. So you had policies that said let's don't have inventory show up by the way they could have, like the REOs could have been foreclosed on, not the notes sold, stuff like that. Okay. So now though, once you've gotten down here, going in reverse, you have to triple in inventory to get to 6 months, and I just don't see the math on that. I don't care how
What
many
about, forget
people.
about tripling, how about just, if you look at, again, that's CRMLS's inventory. It says it's 1.2 months supply, but that's not true. We all can talk for hours about what the true month supply is. It's certainly less than a month. I don't think any of us want to go from a 1 month supply to a 6 month supply, but we'd like to go to a 1 month supply to a 1.5 months or a 2 month supply.
You're
Just wondering if is there any trigger that the consumers in your guys' mind say, hey, I want to engage the real estate market as a seller.
Well, what's interesting, I don't know, let Chris go. You just said you could sell 3 times as many houses, so your demand side is still pushing that inventory level down. So literally, what you just said, if you doubled the inventory, you'd still end up with the same month's supply. But you have that many people wanting to buy it.
Well, then let's not talk about the inventory level, because even if the inventory month supply stays, then let's talk about unit sales. I don't think any of us care what the month supply of inventory is if we went from 10 houses sold this month to 20 next month, but at the end of the month, we still had a 1 month supply of inventory, we wouldn't care.
I mean, hang on, you gotta keep something in mind, and that is ultimately that the month supply is the number of units listed
Right.
divided by sales, right? So as prices continue to rise, it's gonna be added to by really 2 different forces. A, you're gonna have some people who are underwater, going above water, something being liquid, that maybe they decide I'm out, whatever. 2 is our folks who would say, wow, markets are going up, I'm more confident about my job, GDP is growing, it's time for me to move the family into a larger house. And when those people, both those people start coming out, you're going to see inventory added. Now eventually that additional inventory will also add sales, but ultimately if you sit down and just do the mathematics of this, you will see that you add more to units for sale than actual sales, because people list their home for a few months before they have to sell it. And of course, ultimately it means inventory is going to start rising. So, ultimately, of course, the market's going to get to a point where inventory is going to start coming up. But I think that it's not going to be explosive. I mean, the only time you're going to have an explosive increase in inventory is if the market falls apart again.
Correct.
And that's pretty far away.
Well, one of my indications with the inventory, is, and again, I've been wrong so far, is as I thought as the market changed, we would be engaged with more short sale sellers. When the Mortgage Debt Forgiveness Act was set to expire at the end of last year, which of course had been renewed, we were all out as realtors knocking on doors saying, hey, you might want to consider that short sale today, get it closed before December 31st, because the possibility of the Debt Forgiveness Act not being extended was true. The consumers seem oblivious to that. They literally didn't care less. It was like, oh, again, I've been here for a year or 2, 3, not paying. But anyway, let's get off the inventory for a minute. And I've got another little reminder slide here for me. I've got my little Wall Street bull over there. Both of you talked about Wall Street investors, hedge funds in the marketplace. This is a little near and dear to me because we've been engaged with one of those hedge fund buyers here recently. Just on balance, good thing, bad thing for the market. I know you don't like it, but does that mean it's a bad thing for the market or a good thing for the market that Wall Street hedge funds are buying in Southern California?
I guess it's just personal. I don't like them being able to control the inventory. And I'm very Republican, but it's interesting. I land on the other side of that one. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's one of the reasons why I want to know exactly how many they bought. I think they pale in comparison to foreign investors that are buying it. And those are not even close to the numbers that they used to be at the peak of the market, foreign investors. So you still have 90, probably 4%, 3% of the purchases being local investors and occupants. So in that way, I don't know how much market maker they could be if they all decided to sell at whatever their formula tells them.
Right. Chris?
Well, I mean, look, if they're the ones who shrunk inventory to the point that prices started to bounce, I think ultimately that's a good thing. And, you know, what I think is important to keep in mind is it wouldn't be the investors if you had your sort of standard rank and file person able to go out and get a loan. In a very real sense, the reason the investors are there are because it's so hard for somebody with a modest ding on their record to go out and get a mortgage right now, which is kind of funny because, you know, you have an administration that has talked a lot about how they're for the middle class. And here you have what I would argue probably one of the most unprecedented opportunities of wealth creation for the middle class. And yet they're being frozen out by the very policies they put in place to quote unquote punish the banks. thus meaning that it's Wall Street, the rich dudes who are taking advantage of this massive arbitrage, which is sad, really. I mean, it's a wasted opportunity, and boy, if I was in that administration, I would spend a lot of time and effort trying to fix that. But again,
What do you think about the down payments? I did want to ask this, what a qualified residential mortgage, a 20% down payment requirement. Does that make any sense to you?
well, if you have a mortgage insurance aspect and getting in a second, I think it's fine. I mean, that's. But if you're requiring 20%, that's a problem. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, of course it is, especially here in California.
What was interesting, the congressman said something that is accurate, that is surprising, is that the safest mortgage over the last 50 years is VA with nothing down. The down payment isn't the problem, it's the qualifying process that is.
Yeah, that's an interesting comment. I don't know how long that stat's been out there, but it seems like people have been repeating it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I think you have to have something. I think you have to have a scarcity game.
Well, let's face it, probably the majority of the people in this room at one firm or another have been working with an FHA buyer in the last year or so. You have any luck with those? No. Right. Now, how about a 20% conventional buyer? Do you have any luck with those? A little bit? Who's having trouble getting their buyers accepted with 20% down payment? And you're losing to cash, investors, hedge funds, all the rest of that sort of stuff.
Now, you're having trouble getting them qualified, or you're trouble getting the
Having
house?
trouble getting the house.
Okay.
One of the strange things that's happened, in my estimation, man on the street, so to speak, from the investor community, is the dynamic has changed with the investor, with the Wall Street investor anyway, because when you're out doing your hard money loans, and we got a lot of investors in the audience, you're not paying retail. From an investment standpoint, if you got a house that's worth, $200,000.
We're getting it for 198. Wow.
Exactly. But one of the dynamics that's changed with these hedge fund buyers is they're paying retail plus. Let me make a suggestion. I don't know whether you guys feel this is true or maybe I'm premature. I personally think that those days are either over or very numbered as it relates to the hedge fund buyers in the marketplace. They've been buying it, at least in Southern California anyway, the spring home. They've been buying it at sub-5 yields. There's been a lot of articles out there that they're buying hundreds of properties without the ability to manage them and clear them and all the rest of that. So I'm of the mind that the hedge fund Wall Street buyer in the Inland Empire is close to done. Which I think is a good thing, even though I'm representing one of those buyers.
I want to take a little bit of umbrage to this conversation because we have created this boogeyman.
You're always a troublemaker.
Let's get in the fight.
I try. Well, we're making this boogeyman out of the Wall Street guys, and I actually don't think it's just those guys. I mean, I know two guys here in California had put together little funds, and they're doing exactly this. These are small guys doing small funds, buying 30, 40 houses in Kansas City, 30, 40 houses in Phoenix. It's not just the big boys. There are a lot of folks out there who are taking advantage of this arbitrage opportunity because it makes sense. I mean, you sit down and look at the numbers and bear in mind, that's why they're doing it. Because the arbitrage opportunity, where rents have gone, take Southern California. Since 2007, home prices are down, what, 40%, 50%? Relative to, say, the peak of 2007? Yeah. Where are rents today? They're 15%.
For now.
It's so obvious. You're right. Now, I think one of the interesting questions is going to be, and this goes back to the whole multifamily thing, is what's going to happen in a few years when those rental markets do in fact cool? Will these hedge funds say, okay, I made my money, I rented them out, had a nice little thing, now here's my exit strategy, and I turn around and start selling these homes off? Or do they hang on to them because I just made this big investment in the infrastructure necessary to manage renting 700 homes in Southern California, and I'm not going to just throw that away? I don't know. We've never seen this kind of process before. It's going to be very interesting to see where that strategy is. You may very well be right. If they decide not to sell, then really your inventories in the medium term are only going to cover construction, and particularly here in California construction.
Well, I think they will sell, and just so I'm not misunderstood, and I'm not sure if I do that often, miscommunicate. I honestly don't think the hedge funds are bad. I think they're market driven. It's market. I'd much rather have a buyer come in regardless of where their money is, pay whatever they feel the property is worth, as opposed to frankly what we've gone through. Chris, you made your comments about, REOs, there's nothing wrong with the foreclosure. I've been saying that for 4 or 5 years, and in some cases I've been embarrassed to stand up and say it because it seems self-serving, and you're going to stand up as a realtor and say, hey, I'm in favor of foreclosure. It just doesn't sound so great.
Makes you sound evil too.
It does, but your comments were spot on. I mean, we have had a foreclosure system for years that has worked beautifully, and then we decided to put that on its ear in 2008 for maybe some well-intended purposes. But just the fact that there's confidence in the marketplace, whether it's just an individual investor, whether it's just a regular mom and pop home buyer, which I think we would all agree, the regular consumer that we're dealing with, the dog, the cat, the 2 kids, they want to buy houses. So the fact that they're competing with the Wall Street thing, I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. Let me bring that back to the rents though. The 15% increase in rents, where are we talking about? Nationally, California?
Southern California.
Southern California. Okay, I don't know that works here. I'm certainly starting to see, and maybe we're just at the front end of it, downward pressure on that immediately. There's a lot of rental properties out there. And quite honestly, maybe we won't have as much pressure because a lot of buyers that would love to buy are forced to rent, so they're renting around the block as opposed to before. But let's suppose all of these properties that are currently, whether they're hedge fund buyers that are bought and hold or whether they're the others. I believe, Bruce, you said in a prior meeting or maybe even today, you thought we were good for a couple of years and then you get worried in maybe 2015 as far as where the market goes. I believe if I heard you right, Christopher, you indicated we're looking good for a couple of years as far as values. At least. Okay, so we've got positive appreciation in the real estate market for a couple of years. Anything that might change that and revise your opinion if something was going to happen this year or next?
I would say one thing that would be, and it probably is going to happen, is if you ever had FHA revert to their former loan amount. The last time we were at this median price, the maximum loan amount in the Inland Empire was 160 grand, and now it's 500. It's 3 times the size of that loan. Is the only loan those people that lost their home 3 years ago can get. They changed that rule, that'd be a problem.
Any unforeseen?
Well, I mean,
obviously, they're unforeseen, you can't see them.
North Korea tax, I don't know.
But you guys are feeling pretty good. So you feel, at least from a pricing standpoint, which I think we would say is good news. I mean, you've sat through years and years of, oh gosh, we got trouble, we got flat, we've got no growth, we've got overhang of. And again, I agree with the comments about shadow inventory. I don't know what shadow inventory is unless you want to define it as properties that are just in the system and aren't being foreclosed. But we're feeling good at least as far as prices for the next couple of years. Inventory, we'll see where that goes, and rents, maybe a little bit of softening, and we'll see.
Do you think people are leaving California because of affordability? The monthly payment?
I think that, absolutely. We've been seeing this for a decade. There's a lot of folks, particularly like I said, that you take your typical 33-year-old who's got, a couple kids, a wife, maybe he's got an associate's degree, he's making, $65,000 a year. He's not buying. He's nothing he can buy. So he looks at Vegas, he looks at Utah, he looks at Texas, he says, I can go buy out. You've seen a movement of these sort of mid-scale folks out of the state for a long time.
We have
Absolutely.
people, well, on the other side, we have people in our crowd that maybe make what you just said. And they just bought a house a year ago, and now they're worth 100 grand more than they were.
Well, they bought at the right time.
Well, that's my point.
We're rapidly going to the wrong time. That's one of the things that's interesting is California got hit very hard through this downturn. Our unemployment rate going high relative to the U.S. and typically, when you see our unemployment rate going high relative to the U.S., you see our migration people looking for jobs. Oddly enough, we didn't have that this time. But even as people left for jobs, people moved back because homes were cheap for once. And ultimately, that was good. But again, what worries me is as prices continue to rise, we're going to go back to where we were in 2005 when you did see this migration of folks out. So I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that you do see this pressure, but we're just not seeing it now because prices are affordable now. But very quickly, we're going to be back to where we were and say where they are leaving.
Did you see migration loss as prices went up 01, 02, 03, 04?
Yeah, you did start to see people go up, especially 04, 05, 06. You saw a very weird thing because we had an economy that was on fire, and yet we had negative domestic migration, which is almost unheard of.
but you had positive migration overall just because of immigration.
Because of folks coming from Mexico to build homes.
I think this is how two economists disagree. I'm not really sure.
I'm not an economist.
I'm just, well, yeah, you say you're not an economist, but you're.
I don't know, these are the trends. I don't think there's a debate here. This is just numbers. You can go to the Department of Finance and download these numbers. You don't need DE to tell you anything. You'll just see it. It's very unusual for the circumstance.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. You do have county differences, like LA County.
No, that's true. And when I see people move, it doesn't have to be what I say. A lot of folks say move to the coast, into the Inland Empire, but then people in the Inland Empire move out, so.
Let's talk, because we're running a little short on time. We're pressing 11 o'clock. Talk a little bit about prices. And maybe you won't agree with this or not, but let's just assume, 2006, June 2006, which in my world is peak in Inland Empire. That was just overinflated, bubble, never should have been there. That was a problem, which we saw, or at least you saw coming far in advance.
Yeah.
Okay, we've overcorrected, apparently.
Yeah.
We're now on the ride back up, a couple years of fun ahead of us. In relation to peak, where should we start to get uncomfortable as far as reinflating those values? 70% of peak, 80% of peak?
I don't know if peak, I'd have to sit down and do the numbers, but some calculations I did, I would say the headroom to get back to normal levels of affordability would be from where we are today. And again, this is not medians, because medians are weird.
Right.
But 30%, I'd say.
From today.
From today, and that would account for about a 0.5% increase in mortgage rates. Obviously, if mortgage rates come up more than that, then that offsets some of that. But yeah, you got easy 30% headroom.
So you think we could go up 100 grand in median, something like that?
Yes, something.
Now, is that, what if we were to do that?
What do you think? What's your view of it?
I would say it's going to be far more aggressive than that.
Sorry. I would say it's going to be far more aggressive than that if interest rates stay historically low.
Well, again, if interest rates stay where they are, then that gives a little more boost. But
Yeah,
but
not a
also,
little bit.
But is that
I would-
comfortable?
but there's another argument made here, though. That is to say, we've never seen a recovery in housing that hasn't turned into a bubble.
Right.
So-
You can count on it.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
You're going to have a
But your
bubble.
30% number, and obviously, a lot of variables in there, but that would be, you would be comfortable with 30%. You wouldn't be like, oh, we've recreated a bubble. If it went up 30% over, say, the next 2 years, economically, you would sit back and say, this is healthy.
Yeah.
What if we were to do that in the next 12 months? You fear 2014 as, I think, and again, I don't want to characterize Bruce, I'll let you speak to it, but I think if I heard you right previously, that you've got a concern about 2015 or some date down the road as far as...
I have a concern in the difference between, I would say, interest rates are a national phenomenon, right? You're not going to have an FHA loan percent in California. But the trouble with the country is they're going to do maybe less well than California. So you may be stuck with this 3% mortgage rate for longer than we would want to, because our prices could escalate way beyond where they should, just because that monthly payment doesn't change as radically. So in my way of thinking, you could have a huge upside from here, because it'll fit into the monthly budget, and because as prices go up, people keep bringing bigger down payments to the next transaction. So it's not that they're getting a 600 grand mortgage. Sometimes they're bringing in 300 grand to get a 300 grand mortgage by a lot of cash.
And in terms of having a little bit of bubble on the back end of this thing, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Remember, the pain of this last cycle wasn't even because prices had gotten that out of whack. Because, yeah, sure, prices got a lot, but interest rates come down too. It often like prices were overvalued. It wasn't what you would call something, if you just ran the numbers, you wouldn't look at this and go, wow, this is unbelievable. The real pain actually occurred in who was buying and how they were buying it and the loan products that were going to the market. That's where most of the pain came from. What you can say is, yeah, we might get overheated in the back end of this thing, but long as there's not that collapse in credit standards we saw in this last cycle.
Pretty much anybody's buying, no income, no credit.
Yeah, you
no
remember
job,
ninja loans.
no
My
job.
favorite was always ninja loans, right? Ninja loans, loans, somebody no income, no job or assets.
Right.
There was that reporter.
Who was doing those loans? I know we got a couple lenders out there. There we go. We got one honest guy out there. And who was selling those houses?
Now
And now you're not making any money?
Well, it's total sidebar. As an industry, the real estate industry, we as realtors, I am amazed that we have just been destroyed in the media as it relates to interest and our culpability in the run-up of values. as primarily a listing agent. I can remember in 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7, selling houses as the listing agent, and I thought to myself, gee, really? You know, this is what you're going to buy, and you're going to pay $340,000 for this? I mean, it makes that house that Bruce put up on the chart there earlier look like a palace. Okay, we only got a couple more questions, and again, I promised these guys we'd get them out here at 11, and we're already a few minutes over. Politically, we had Congressman Miller here, which was kind of an unexpected guest. He kind of added himself to the agenda a little while ago. Anything politically on the horizon that we should keep an eye out for, fearful of? You know, believe it or not, I'm not all that worried about mortgage interest deductibilty.
President Palin.
President Palin. You know what? Good Lord, where did that just start? I mean, we're already talking about candidates for next year. I'll leave my political affiliations out, other than I'm a Republican, but Sarah Palin actually turns my stomach up. I can't stand it. There's a few people on television I can't stand to see. She's one of them. And, Al Sharpton and a few others. But at any rate.
President Sharpton, that's scary too.
So, but anything out there, I mean, obviously we've got the extension of the mortgage debt forgiveness, which I don't know if that's a big deal or not. It's extended. We, as a realtor community, we seem to make a big deal out of it. Mortgage interest deductibility, is that going to be a big fight with a sequester and the budget comes up, the debt ceiling?
Yeah, but here's the funny thing about that, and you know, I can speak. You always hear these jokes, you know, you play every economist end to end and they never reach a conclusion. You know, bring me a one-handed economist, you know, on the other hand. We hear this nonsense all the time. What's amazing about the interest deductibility issue is every economist that I know, on the right and on the left, every reputable economist, which would not include Lawrence Yun.
You don't like Lawrence? Lawrence Yun, NAR chief economist.
You can't. He works. What he says is what his masters want him to say.
Right. Which is us in this room, by the way, and which is an embarrassment. I mean, I know we're on video, and I'm sure this is going to work its way to CAR and NAR. It's an absolute embarrassment when we have our chief economist at NAR saying the stuff that he's been saying in the face of all the data.
Yeah, and you know, but every economist I know agrees the same thing, that the interest deduction is ridiculous. There's no reason to have it. It creates all sorts of distortions in the market, and it should be gone. It's simple as that.
Okay. So other than the hand clamoring on
Every economist?
Yeah, anybody who's reputable, yeah. Any economist who said that's wrong.
Any of them that have a house sprinkler?
Yes, even those. Any reputable economist. Look.
So let me
But
make
back
sure.
up,
So if they went away,
but
they
back up, I
wouldn't
didn't
have
finish,
an
but
issue
you guys keep jumping along, let me finish.
Okay.
Logic and politics are separate things. And candidly, every economist in the world can stand up and say this over and over and over again, and it wouldn't make a damn bit of difference.
Right.
They're not getting rid of it.
But if they did,
way too
but
much.
if they did, it wouldn't matter. That's really my question.
What you'd have is you'd have a compensating hit. Probably prices would drop a bit. I'm not saying doubt about that, but then things would move forward. The only people who benefited from the interest deduction were those who owned homes when it was put into place. As you put it into place, it was functionally subsidizing borrowing, which raised the price of homes. So for you and I, sure, we get the interest deduction, and the penalty for that interest deduction is we pay more for the home. It's an offsetting effect. And as a result of that, it's an unnecessary distortion that really doesn't help anybody.
Let's go to Texas, and the home prices never go up.
Yeah.
That's true to me. They do slowly, but.
Okay, man, this is tough. I want to go on for days. I know. You gotta go. I promised Chris he'd be out here at 11. It's now 11:06. So just give me 2 minutes before you guys run off the stage. First of all, again, let's give Chris and Bruce a big hand.
Yeah.